Tina's body transformed into a series of afterimages as she hurtled toward the black-robed figure. The black-robed man was shocked. He quickly crossed his arms and blocked in front of himself. In the next moment, a sharp military dagger was tightly grasped in Hina's hand. With a cold glint, she stabbed at the black-robed man like raindrops. Ding 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 ding. The continuous stabs landed on the black-robed man's body, causing a series of crisp sounds. Ha 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 ha. The black-robed man laughed out loud. It's useless. No matter what kind of attack it is, it can't hurt me. Hina ignored the ear-piercing laughter. The military dagger in her hand continued to stab. The onlookers could only see the cold glint of the dagger as it landed on the black-robed man's body, causing a series of crisp sounds. The first person to realize that something was wrong was still Li Qingyin. That idiot. Li Qingyin raised his gun without hesitation and pointed it at Hina. However, Hina suddenly took a step and darted into the black-robed man's shadow. Li Qingyin's gun suddenly lost its target. That was because Hina's petite body was completely blocked by the black-robed man. Under such circumstances, Hina continued to stab the black-robed man's body with the military dagger. If one looked closely, they would realize that Hina's relentless stabs all landed on the black-robed man's left shoulder joint. Thus, when Hina stabbed the military dagger for the umpteenth time, there was no crisp sound this time. Crack. The sound of something cracking suddenly came from the black-robed man's left shoulder. What? The black-robed man cried out. Tisk. Li Qingyin was speechless. He gave up on the gun and rushed out. He activated the imaginary device in his body and concentrated the repulsive force field on his palm, forming an invisible repulsive force spear. Ah! Leech Benet Jr. finally recovered from his injuries with the strong regenerative ability of the cursed child. He held two odachi and pounced like a crazy demon. In the end, no one noticed. While Hina was stabbing the black-robed man endlessly, the sniper rifle in her other hand was already pointed at the ground. When Li Qingyin and Leech Benet Jr. were behind her, Hina's voice echoed. Explosive bullet. With that, Hina pulled the trigger of the sniper rifle. Boom! In the uninhabited building, a violent explosion suddenly occurred. Flames surged out of the building like a wave and instantly shattered the glass and walls. The pedestrians on the road were all shocked. Looking at the unoccupied buildings filled with flames, one by one, they were shocked, panicked, and in a commotion. Some even began to call the police. The explosion set the building ablaze and instantly created a fire scene. No one knew that the building was not on fire, but that someone was fighting. Gulp, cough, ugh. In the center of the explosion, in the building that had turned into a sea of fire, Li Qingyin, Leech Benet Jr., and the black-robed man were all on the ground. Their bodies were charred black and they let out muffled groans. Although they were not killed by the explosion, they were severely injured. Hina was standing in the middle, but she was not affected at all. She threw away the sniper rifle that had exploded because of the powerful explosive bullet and held a military dagger in her hand. She looked at the black-robed man and said coldly, "This is what you get for speaking rudely to my brother. Bastard." The black-robed man's face was ferocious. So strong. Leech Benet Jr. finally showed an expression of fear. Really, a monster. Li Qingyin could not help but let out a bitter laugh. Because, no one knew better than these three people why Hina was unscathed in the face of the explosion that did not distinguish between friend and foe. At the moment of the explosion, Hina released three spherical objects. That was the Sandfeld. It was a small reconnaissance aircraft that could collect all the information within its scope and directly transmit it to the user's mind. With the help of the three small reconnaissance drones, Tina was able to gather information about the explosion in an instant. She calculated the area of effect of the explosion and used her sniper rifle at the area where the explosion was the weakest to disperse the waves of flames and shockwaves that were rushing towards her. That's right. She dispersed it. Hina's attack had blown away the explosion itself. Undoubtedly, the cursed child was not a close combat type, but he had such strength. With such strength, it was no wonder that the strongest initiator would give up on long-range sniping, which was the most advantageous for him, and directly rush over. How terrifying. The initiator of monsters is also a monster, you said it yourself. Hina walked in front of the black-robed man and pointed the military dagger in her hand at his head. Her crimson eyes shone with determination. If my brother is a monster, then let me be a monster too. Her words that were not confused made the black-robed man tremble all over. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. The black-robed man roared in a low voice. Why is it that man? Why is it always that man? What's so good about that man? Why do you all see him in a different light? The roar that was full of hatred and resentment made Hina narrow her eyes. Did this guy have some kind of grudge against her brother? Just as Hina was thinking this, another voice that was different from anyone else's suddenly sounded. How surprising, I didn't expect you to still be alive. At this moment, everyone's eyes widened. Chapter 2103. The ceiling of the building that was engulfed in flames had already begun to collapse, causing thick smoke to fill the entire space. It was extremely uncomfortable. However, regardless of whether it was Tina, Li Qingyin, Leech Benet Jr., or the black-robed man, none of them cared about this. Everyone's eyes widened slightly. When they finally reacted, they turned their heads abruptly and looked towards the source of the sound. They saw that on one of the windows that was engulfed in flames, a figure had unknowingly appeared there. He sat on the windowsill, ignoring the surrounding flames as a pair of deep, dark eyes met everyone's gaze. You've grown up, Tina. Brother. The crimson color in Tina's eyes instantly disappeared, and they returned to their original color. The coldness that Tina had been carrying since the beginning of the battle had disappeared without a trace, and was replaced by excitement. He's actually back. Li Qingyin's expression changed abruptly under his mask. Father. Leech Benet Jr. seemed to have awakened a terrifying memory, and for the first time, she called out to Li Qingyin for help. Only the black-robed man's body trembled the moment he saw the person who had arrived. In the next moment, a roar filled with resentment and hatred rang out. Noah Dole. Driven by resentment and hatred, the black-robed man suddenly leaped up. His figure shot out violently, and he rushed in the direction of Noah with an astonishing frenzy. Brother. Only then did Tina snap back to her senses. She looked at the black-robed figure charging toward Noah, and her eyes turned crimson again as she arched her petite body without any hesitation. Just as Tina was about to rush out, a voice stopped her. Tina, don't do anything. Noah leaped down from the windowsill and landed on the ground. Looking at the black-robed man who was rushing towards him like a madman, the corners of his mouth curled up with a hint of mockery and coldness. I'd like to see how much you've improved compared to 3 years ago, you undying bastard. After saying that, Noah did not dodge. He just stood there, looking at the black-robed man rushing towards him with a faint smile. This performance naturally caused the black-robed man's resentment and hatred to become even more violent. You're courting death. The black-robed man suddenly roared, his speed becoming even more astonishing as he rushed towards Noah. Then, the black-robed man raised his tightly clenched fist, bringing with it the sound of the wind, and punching towards Noah's head. That punch carried with it a strong gust of wind that blew out the raging flames that were burning within a radius of a few meters. The sound of the explosion was extremely ear-piercing, telling everyone how astonishing the power of this punch was. Unfortunately, in the face of this astonishing blow that was like a cannonball, Noah only narrowed his eyes, raised his hand, and punched out. Boom! When the two extremely ordinary-looking fists collided together, accompanied by a heavy muffled sound, a circle of powerful impact suddenly spread out, shattering the ground, causing cracks to spread out like a spider web with Noah and the black-robed man as the center. However, the ground wasn't the only thing that cracked. In the split second when the two collided, the black-robed man's gloved fist also issued a cracking sound, and the entire sleeve of his arm was shattered into pieces by the shockwave. Hidden under the sleeves was an arm that had a metallic luster. It was an arm completely made of pure black metal, flashing with faint blue light patterns. Noah had only seen such an arm on one person. That was Rentaro. In the absence of gravity, using holmium as the base, and then mixing in rare and ordinary metals to create an artificial arm made of a next-generation alloy with a hardness and melting point several times higher than holmium? Noah opened his palm and held the super holmium metal arm tightly, and smiled at the black-robed man. You crawled back from hell, and this is what you get? After that, Noah suddenly turned around and kicked the black-robed man heavily. Clank! The powerful kick landed on the black-robed man's chest, and it still caused a crisp sound like the collision of steel. However, the force of the kick actually hit the black-robed man's body, and the black-robed man flew backward, his feet rubbing against the ground, and he slid all the way back. However, before that, Noah reached out a hand and grabbed the black-robed man's black robe. With a tearing sound, the black-robed man's black robe was torn to shreds. It wasn't until the person in the black robe slid all the way out that everyone present finally saw the person's true appearance under the black robe. However, when she saw the black-robed man's full face, Tina's scarlet eyes narrowed. If Tina, Rentaro, and Leech Ing-yin were all mechanical soldiers of the new human creation project, then in front of this man, they could all throw their identities as mechanical soldiers into the trash can. This was because no one was more suitable to be a mechanical soldier than the black-robed man in front of them. As a mechanical soldier of the new human creation project, Tina only had a chip implanted in her brain, and Leech Ing-yin had an imaginary device installed in his body. Even though there were mechanical parts in his body, he was undoubtedly a human. Even Rentaro only had his right hand, right leg, and left eye replaced with super holmium metal prosthetics. The man in front of them was a true mechanical soldier. There wasn't an inch of skin on his body, only pure black super holmium metal. Even the head was made entirely out of super holmium metal. The face was clearly a mannequin. It was a life form made entirely out of metal. However, from the man's metal face, Tina could still recognize a person in her memory. You are. Tina gasped in shock. Chapter 2104. Noah's words pierced deeply into Zhuo Wei's heart, causing blood to rush to his head. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Zhuo Wei roared crazily. I'll definitely kill you. Just as Zhuo Wei was about to charge out again, a hand gripped his shoulder tightly. Unfortunately, it's almost time. Leech Ing-yin pressed down on his cracked mask with one hand and pressed down on Zhuo Ren's shoulder with the other as he spoke in an unquestionable tone. The attack should have already begun. If we continue to stay here, we'll just be digging our own graves. Zhuo Wei glared angrily at Leech Ing-yin. However, Zhuo Wei's angry glare was met with a murderous glare from Leech Ing-yin under his mask. If you don't want to listen to me, I don't mind making you listen to me. That deep and emotionless voice made Zhuo Wei's heart tremble slightly. Although Zhuo Wei had been modified into a mechanical soldier and was no longer an incompetent weakling like 3 years ago, Zhuo Wei was still no match for Leech Ing-yin. After all, Zhuo Wei was different from Zhuo Wei, who only relied on his mechanical soldier's super holmium metal body to fight. Not only could Leech Ing-yin skillfully use the virtual device in his body, but his combat skills were also quite powerful. Zhuo Wei could not compare to him. Zhuo Wei was just an incompetent captain of the security team. He was not like Leech Ing-yin, who had killed countless people in his life. He was extremely cruel and even tried to destroy the world. It was impossible for Zhuo Wei not to be afraid in the face of such a crazy person. Zhuo Wei could only unwillingly lower his arm and roar at Noah with a twisted face. Remember, one day, I'll kill you with my own hands. After saying that, Leech Ing-yin grabbed Zhuo Ren with one hand and leaped into the blazing sea of fire with Leech Little Benet, disappearing without a trace. Wait! Tina wanted to chase after them, but Noah stopped her again. Don't worry about them. We'll deal with them later, Noah said. What's important now is Muggeng. Let's go there first. Young Mistress Muggeng? Tina was first taken aback before coming to a realization. Could it be, that's right, their mission was to lure you away. You've fallen into their trap. Noah turned his head and looked in the direction of the sacred residence. Mugging should have suffered a real attack. It's more important to rush there now. It was just as Noah had thought. After Tina was lured away by Zhuoren, Ingyin the leech, and Binay the leech, a group of people attacked the holy abode. Bang, 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 bang. Amidst the chaotic gunfire, a group of people wearing bulletproof vests and gas masks were hiding behind cars, trees, and all kinds of cover, firing in the direction of the holy residence. The guards of the holy residence were fighting back. They used the entire holy residence as cover, holding guns and constantly shooting at the terrorist troops. Compared to 3 years ago, Holy Sun had obviously spent a lot of effort on the guards. The guards today were not as incompetent as they were 3 years ago. Although they were caught off guard, they still organized an effective counterattack and firmly blocked the terrorists outside the holy residence. Among them, Xia Shi also held a submachine gun and constantly pulled the trigger, letting the bullets rain out like raindrops, restraining the terrorists' footsteps. Behind Xia Shi, Mugging calmly held a knife, and beside her was Holy Sun. Bang! A grenade was thrown over, but it was shot by Xia Shi. It exploded in midair, setting off a strong wave of fire and impact. However, this grenade completely tilted the battle in the direction of the terrorists. As if they were inspired, the terrorists threw grenades one after another. Bang 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 bang. Explosions sounded one after another, blowing up the guards of the holy residence one after another. Some were even blown away by the waves of fire and impact, rolling on the ground in a sorry state and crying out. Under the powerful firepower attack, the terrorists finally came out from behind the cover. Like an army, one by one, they approached Mugging and Holy Sun. Miss Mugging. Xia Shi did not panic, but looked at Mugging calmly. President Tiantong. Holy Sun tightly held his hands in front of him and cast his gaze on Mugging. Under the gaze of Xia Shi and Holy Sun, Mugging only slowly put her hand on the hilt of the knife, and her eyes began to become sharp. Just as the knife ghost was about to show his power, an accident happened. Poochie. A strange sound suddenly sounded. In the terrorist group that came out in full force, the head of the attacker who rushed at the front suddenly exploded, splashing a large amount of blood and brain matter, and slowly falling to the ground. The sudden sacrifice caused the entire terrorist group to subconsciously stop in their tracks. However, the moment they stopped, the terrorists' doomsday also arrived. Shio 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 shio. Sniper bullets suddenly cut through the air, with a sharp sound that surpassed the speed of sound, fiercely attacking point one by one. The terrorists' heads were shot through by the sniper bullets, and with the last cry of their lives, they fell to the ground and lost consciousness forever. The group of terrorists had no way to find where the enemy was, and suddenly panicked. However, the sniper bullets that brought death continued, and the terrorists fell one by one. Pools of blood stained the ground red. Seeing this scene, Mugging breathed a sigh of relief and smiled slightly. Looks like Tina made it in time. Obviously, when the attack came and Tina did not appear, Mugging had already guessed that Tina was lured away by someone else. Now, Tina had obviously defeated the interferer and joined the battle. Apart from Tina, there was no one else in Mugging's memory who was able to hit their target with a 100% accuracy rate. Moreover, Mugging had already discovered that Tina's Sandfeld had moved here and was investigating the scene. There was no clearer signal than this. Tina made it in time? Xia Shi seemed to be relieved. Then there's no problem. They both belonged to the Fairy Tale Guild, and he was Tina's closest playmate, so no one knew how terrifying Tina's strength was better than Xia Shi. To put it bluntly, if Tina was willing, even if she were to attack a large country, it would only be a matter of time before the country was destroyed, unless there was someone who had also reached the level of domain in the country. Even if it was close combat, which was her weakest point, the current Tina could easily defeat almost all of the cursed children. Once she went into sniping, which she was most proficient in, she was truly invincible. Therefore, in Xia Shi's opinion, since Tina had made it in time, then there was no problem. However, the Holy Sun who had been protected all this time shook his head. No, it's not over yet. Yes. It was not over yet. Because, even though the terrorists were panicking after the unimaginable sniping, they still did not retreat. What did this mean? It meant that the terrorists were not willing to give up the attack, but it meant that they still had methods that they had not used yet. This thought was confirmed in the next second. Tisk, there's no other way. A guy who looked like the leader of the terrorists took out a communication device and shouted into it. Release that. Just as the leader of the terrorists finished speaking, a military helicopter flew over from midair. That's. Mugging and the Holy Sun seemed to have thought of something, and their expressions changed slightly. Xiaoshi focused his attention on another place. That was a large metal box that the military helicopter was carrying. The military helicopter that flew above the holy residence directly released the steel rope that was holding the metal box, and the huge metal box fell from midair and landed heavily on the ground. Quick! The leader of the terrorists hurriedly ordered. Open it. A few of the terrorists immediately ran around the metal box and pressed the combination lock. At this moment, Mugging, the Holy Sun, and Xiaoshi had an ominous feeling in their hearts. Chapter 2105. No one knew if Tina had the same bad premonition as everyone else, but a few sniper bullets immediately pierced through the air and shot the terrorists who were gathered around the combination lock, sending them to hell. Go again. Go again. All of you, go. The terrorist leader shouted in a voice that didn't sound rational at all, ordering the terrorists to go forward one after another, rushing to the side of the large metal box as if their lives depended on it. They operated the combination lock in an attempt to open the metal box. With so many sacrifices, the last password was finally pressed. Kacha. Along with such a sound, the linked parts of the large metal box suddenly separated, as if disintegrating, falling in all directions. Wah! Seeing everything in the large metal box, Mugging, Elysian, and Xiaoshi all gasped in shock. Bang! A sturdy leg came out of the iron box and landed heavily on the ground, causing a rumbling sound and a cloud of dust to rise. A huge creature walked out step by step, exposing its full appearance to everyone's vision. Looking at the behemoth, all the guards of the holy abode widened their eyes, the blood draining from their faces. Mugging, Elysian, and Xiaoshi also looked at the huge figure, falling into shock. In a word, it was a protozoan. However, it wasn't a normal protozoan. At least, normal protozoans definitely didn't have such a huge body. Its height was more than 10 meters. The length of its neck took up 3/4 of its height. Its head was the appearance of a standard reptile. Its body was like an elephant. Although its tail wasn't as long as its neck, it was still much longer than its body, and was very heavy. When it landed on the ground, even a casual drag could crush the ground. Its appearance was simply like a long-necked dinosaur from the dinosaur era, its 4 thick legs stomping heavily, causing the ground to tremble. However, its skin wasn't as smooth and thick as a long-necked dinosaur's. Instead, it was filled with pore-like lumps, looking extremely disgusting. Ooh 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 ooh. Then, the long-necked protozoan let out a roar that shook the air. The roar even formed a storm, blowing away everything in the surroundings towards Mugging, Xiaoshi, and the Holy Son of Heaven. Mugung, Xiaoshi, and Xingtianzi all had different reactions when they saw the huge protozoa. Stage 3. No. It's definitely a Stage 4 protozoan. Mugung's expression was a little ugly. How could this be? Elysian Son of Heaven was in disbelief. They actually managed to transport protozoa in here? Xiaoshi gripped his submachine gun tightly, his expression constantly changing. The three of them did not expect that in order to achieve the goal, the terrorists behind the scenes actually secretly transported the primitive animals to the Tokyo area and brazenly threw them into the attack. That was no joke. The protozoa themselves were not scary, but that was another matter altogether. The most important thing was that if one was attacked by a protozoa, there was a high chance that one would be infected with the protozoa virus, causing many people to turn into protozoa. If it was not handled well and the protozoa virus spread in the Tokyo area, it would definitely be a disaster. In order to kill me, they didn't hesitate to drag the entire Tokyo area into the water and involve the innocent people? Mugen gripped the handle of the katana at her waist, her gaze becoming fierce. A bunch of incorrigible bastards. Elysian Son of Heaven's expression also became somewhat sorrowful, closing his eyes as if he was praying to God. Under such circumstances, the terrorist leader pointed in Mugen's direction and actually ordered the protozoa. Kill her. Hearing that, the long-necked protozoan turned its long neck and turned its eyes to Mugen, a murderous glint appearing in its eyes. Ooh 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 ooh. The next moment, the long-necked protozoan actually obeyed the terrorist leader's order and moved its thick but short legs, running wildly in Mugen's direction. Dong 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 dong. The earth-shaking footsteps echoed in the surroundings, causing the entire holy residence to tremble. Lord Elysian Son of Heaven. Mugen and Xiaoshi chose to protect Elysian Son of Heaven at the same time, one on the left and one on the right, dashing in front of Elysian Son of Heaven, one on the left and the other on the right, one in a battle stance, the other holding up a submachine gun. Fire! Fire! The holy residence guards also reacted, suppressing the fear in their hearts. One by one, they raised their guns. Don't even think about it. The terrorist leader led the remaining terrorists and also raised their weapons, once again starting a gunfight with the holy residence guards. The protozoa in the shape of the long-necked protozoa, under the cover of the terrorists, roared while charging in the direction of Mugen and the others like a tank. Whoosh! At this moment, the sound of a bullet piercing through the air was heard. The powerful sniper bullet pierced through the air and landed on the head of the long-necked protozoa. Bang! The head of the long-necked protozoa was directly blown apart by the powerful anti-tank sniper bullet, spilling a large amount of blood and flesh. It was extremely gory. The long-necked protozoa's charge was stopped. Good job, Tina. Mugen and Xiaoshi smiled in unison. Unfortunately, in the next moment, Mugen and Xiaoshi's smiles froze. Gurgle gurgle. In a creepy squirming sound, the flesh on the neck of the long-necked protozoa suddenly bulged out. In the next second, the head of the long-necked protozoa returned to its original state, roaring loudly. Seeing this scene clearly, whether it was Mugen, Xiaoshi, or the Holy Sun, all of them were shocked. Holmium is ineffective? The metal that could weaken the activity of the protozoa's virus, causing protozoa to lose their regenerative ability holmium. It was because of this metal that humans obtained the means to effectively kill protozoa and were able to survive. However, the long-necked protozoa in front of them had regenerated after suffering a fatal injury. No one would think that Tina's sniping would not use holmium bullets when the enemy was a protozoa. In this case, there was only one explanation that could explain the phenomenon before them. Holmium was ineffective. Is that protozoa's regenerative ability very high? At the top of a building far away, Tina, who was aiming and shooting, could not help but be speechless. For a moment, she could not snipe anymore. A stage 4 protozoan was a calamitous existence for ordinary people and even ordinary police officers. A person who had the ability to deal with a stage 4 protozoa alone, even if it was the initiator of the cursed child, had to be at least in the top 100 of the IP ranking. However, Tina was the strongest initiator. She had the ability to deal with a stage V zodiacal protozoa alone, let alone a stage 4 protozoa. However, that was under the condition that the attack method was effective. If holmium was ineffective against protozoa, then even if it could be defeated, the opponent would immediately recover. There was nothing that could be done. Therefore, the expressions of Mugen, Xiaoshi, and Tina, who was sniping at the top of a building far away, became solemn. The Holy Sun, on the other hand, had a face full of worry. He clenched his fists tighter and tighter as he kept praying. The Holy Sun's prayer was obviously successful. Whoosh! Just as the long-necked dragon was roaring wantonly, the sharp sound of something breaking through the air rang out again. However, this time, it was not a bullet that caused the sound of something breaking through the air, but a person. A figure suddenly rushed over from the distant horizon. Like a meteor, it cut through the air and shot in front of the long-necked dragon. Then, it threw a punch. Boom! When the meteorite-like punch landed on the body of the long-necked dinosaur, the terrifying force impacted the huge body of the stage, for protozoan and spread out. The long-necked dragon's roar didn't even have time to fall before its entire body exploded under the astonishing punch. Pieces of flesh mixed with a large amount of blood fell to the ground one by one like a large piece of trash. The figure that descended from the sky slowly landed, accompanied by huge pieces of meat and crimson blood. Then, it landed on the ground. Mu Gung and Xia Shijun fell into a daze as if they had not reacted to what had happened. The Holy Sun was also stunned. However, when he saw the full appearance of the figure that landed on the ground, his beating heart suddenly stopped. At the same time, Noah raised his head and met the Holy Sun's gaze. Time stopped. Chapter 2106. Perhaps it was just an illusion. However, at this moment, everything in the world seemed to have disappeared, leaving only a man and a woman, looking at each other. Noah and the Holy Son of Heaven looked at each other, and they could clearly see the emotions in each other's eyes. Of course, Noah did not know what kind of emotions were in his eyes at this moment. Noah only knew that in the eyes of the pure and holy girl, all kinds of emotions were clearly revealed. In those eyes, there was disbelief. In those eyes, there was disbelief. In those eyes, there was an extremely strong joy. In that pair of eyes, there was an unprecedented emotion of excitement. Although all of this was only shown in those watery eyes, Noah undoubtedly felt it for nothing. 3 years was like one day. With just one look, Noah could confirm that the pure and holy girl in front of him was still the same as the head of state who confessed in front of him 3 years ago. She had not changed at all. At the very least, the feelings in the deepest part of his heart would be completely revealed with just this look in his eyes. Thus, Noah's expression unknowingly softened. Only at this moment did Mu Gung and Xia Shi react. Looking at Noah, the shock on their faces turned into shock, and then into joy. Noah. President. Hearing Mu Gung and Xia Shi's call, Noah retracted his gaze from the Holy Son of Heaven and turned to the two girls. However, the current situation was clearly not suitable for reminiscing. How? How is this possible? The terrorist leader, who had witnessed the entire process of the long-necked dragon being killed, let out a trembling voice, as if he was hysterical. Hey! Move for me! Move for me! You haven't completed your mission yet. You're not allowed to die here. How much do you think it costs to nurture you? Hurry up and get up. Amidst the terrorist leader's shout, the pieces of flesh of the long-necked dragon that had been blown apart suddenly wriggled up. The surprise on Mugang and Xia Shi's faces faded, and they became alert again. The Holy Son of Heaven also realized that this was not the time to be happy, and his face tensed up again. Even Noah frowned slightly. He looked at the pieces of wriggling flesh around him and muttered softly. Not only is he immune to Qi, but his regenerative ability is also so strong. As mentioned before, there were differences in the regenerative abilities of protogut animals. Ordinary holmium weapons, which were weapons made from holmium, could kill individuals. Their regeneration ability was ranked at level 1. Most protozoa and originators belonged to this level. Those that did not belong to this level were defined as level 2. They were able to resist ordinary weapons and could only be defeated by beheading or burning them with fuel. At level 3, even the severed arm could be regenerated or returned to its original body. The cells seemed to resonate with each other. Level 4 meant that even if it lost most of its internal organs, it could still regenerate. If one wanted to kill it, they would have to destroy it completely. Level 5 meant that even if the target was thrown into an extremely low temperature, vacuum, or magma of thousands of degrees, as long as it adapted to the environment, it could regenerate. Moreover, it was a molecular level regeneration. Other than super holmium items, no physical means could kill it. Since the giraffe was immune to Qi and could move even if it was bombed into pieces, its regeneration ability must be at least level 3. Not only is it a stage 4 protozoa, but its regeneration level has also reached level 3? Noah cast his gaze on the terrorist leader and narrowed his eyes slightly. This protozoa, that guy was really commanding it just now, right? Let alone a stage 4 protozoa, even a stage I protozoa had never been heard of taking orders from a human. However, the terrorist leader had successfully ordered the stage 4 giraffe to attack. Leech Shadow Een, Threat Protector, and stage 4 protozoa. All of them are cards that ordinary people can't have. Noah was deep in thought. Looks like the attack this time wasn't as simple as the rulers of various countries not being able to tolerate the existence of fairy tale. With this thought, Noah looked at Xiaoshi. Xiaoshi, you have incendiary bombs on you, right? It was just a short sentence, but Xiaoshi had already understood. The next moment, Xiaoshi took out a few incendiary bombs from his waist, pulled out the safety pin, and threw them directly at the giraffe's flesh. Bang 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 bang. Following the sound of explosions, the incendiary bombs exploded and set off bursts of fire. The entire vast space in front of the holy abode was engulfed in flames. The fire engulfed the wriggling flesh of the long-necked dragon, slowly burning. Under the burning of the fire, the giraffe's flesh was gradually roasted to a crisp. Finally, it stopped moving and turned into ashes in the fire. It's over. The terrorist leader let out a voice of despair. At this time, Tina's sniping began again, shooting down all the terrorists one by one. Looking at this scene, the terrorist leader knew that it was over. He, extremely abruptly, the terrorist leader began to laugh neurotically. It's okay, it's okay. The terrorist leader let out a voice that made one's hair stand on end. Even if we fail this time, next time, we will definitely succeed. In the end, the world will definitely belong to us, to our Five Xiang Association. Five Xiang Association? Mugging and Xing Tianzi both had a reaction to this name. Five Xiang Association? Noah was slightly startled. Noah had never heard of this name before. Just as Noah was slightly startled, the terrorist leader suddenly pulled out a gun and pointed it at his throat. Wait! Mugging and Xing Tianzi exclaimed in unison. But, at this time, it was already too late to stop it. Bang! The sound of the gunshot echoed clearly in the sky above the blazing holy abode. The terrorist leader slowly fell to the ground. A large amount of blood flowed out from his throat and dyed the ground red. Mugging and Xing Tianzi opened their mouths slightly. In the end, they sighed and chose to remain silent. Noah's brows furrowed once again. Ignoring the raging flames, he directly stepped forward and came in front of the terrorist leader. He squatted down and removed the other party's gas mask. What appeared in Noah's field of vision was an extremely ordinary middle-aged man. Of course, Noah didn't recognize this middle-aged man. His gaze stayed on the middle-aged man's face for a while. Noah then turned to the middle-aged man's body and began to inspect. Suddenly, Noah discovered that there seemed to be a mark on the middle-aged man's neck. Raising his eyebrows, Noah directly reached out and tore off the middle-aged man's bulletproof vest. He looked at his neck. The mark on the middle-aged man's neck was nothing else but a tattoo. A pentagram tattoo decorated with a pair of feathers. A pentagram tattoo decorated with feathers. Noah whispered. Five Xiang Association? Noah didn't know what this so-called Five Xiang Association was. However, from the fact that the other party's members could control protozoa, it was definitely not an ordinary organization. Moreover, this organization was very likely to have people who could carry out the transformation surgery of the new human creation plan. If this wasn't the case, then Threat Zhuo wouldn't have become a mechanical soldier. I'm afraid that it's not an ordinary person who can carry out the transformation surgery of the new human creation plan, right? After all, it might not be too difficult to inject a brain fragment into a protozoan virus and restore it, but it was definitely not as easy as it sounded to fit a restored brain into a mechanized body, allowing the brain to smoothly drive the entire mechanized body and maintain its rationality and thought processes. In addition, Li Qingyin also appeared and moved together with Threat Zhuo, who was reborn. This so-called Five Xiang Association was definitely not ordinary. Of course, whether or not Threat Zhuo was a member of the Five Xiang Association still needed to be proven. Perhaps, like Li Qingyin, who was once employed by the Heavenly Chrysanthemum, Threat Zhuo was only hired by the Five Xiang Association and became the other party's hired thug. In this case, whether or not the person who helped Threat Zhuo with the transformation was a member of the Five Xiang Association also needed to be carefully considered. I just came back and there are already a lot of things to do. Chapter 2107. The ambush came to an end just like that. In front of the Holy Abodes Plaza, the Holy Abodes guards were organizing people to put out the fire, gradually extinguishing the flames that Xia Shi had ignited with the incendiary bombs. Noah, Mugging, Elysian, and Xia Shi, along with Tina, re-entered the Holy Abodes guest hall. Seriously, where have you been these 3 years? Mugging put her hands on her hips and threw a tantrum at Noah, as if she was accusing him. You haven't made a single call, you haven't sent back a single message, even your whereabouts are a complete mystery, even the guild's intelligence department didn't have a clue, and the various countries in the world couldn't find a trace of you. Those who don't know would really think that you were swallowed by some protozoan. When Mugging was throwing a tantrum, Xia Shi and Tina also stood on his left and right, and they had no intention of mediating at all. They looked at Noah with one of their eyes full of blame and the other full of indignation. 3 years ago, no matter whether it was Xia Shi or Tina, although they were both frigid and muddle-headed, the only thing they had in common was that they were very close to Noah, and very clingy to Noah. But now, neither Xia Shi nor Tina spoke up for Noah, clearly worried that Noah had really met with some mishap, which was why they were so angry when they saw him again. Even the more docile Elysian chose not to speak up for Noah at this time, only sitting there, staring at Noah, as if waiting for Noah to give an explanation. In response, Noah could only smile bitterly. Am I not back now? That one sentence caused the expressions of all the girls to become a little colder. I say, President Noah, Mugging said with a fake smile. Do you know that your words make you sound like a heartless man? You've been wandering around outside for so long, and that's the only explanation you can come back with? What heartless man? Noah rolled his eyes. You're not my wives. I'm just a hands-off boss, right? Xia Shi and Tina glanced at each other upon hearing this, and the holy heavenly child's expression became even more indescribable. Meanwhile, Mugung exploded. It's because you've become a hands-off manager that I've had to work so hard for the past 3 years. Mugging slammed his hands on the table in front of Noah and glared at Noah. You know I'm not your wife, and yet you've thrown your home to me to take care of. Do you think it's easy for me to help you build a fairyland? Okay. I know you've worked hard. I'll definitely give you a satisfactory compensation later, okay? Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he pressed Muging's shoulder and pushed her back to her seat. What's the matter? Let's talk about it at home, okay? Not your wife's housekeeper. Noah's teasing words made Mugging grit her teeth in anger. Tina, Xia Shi, you've worked hard too. Noah turned to the two girls and reached out to pat their heads. I'm sorry for throwing so many things at you. Under Noah's affectionate gesture, the resentment in Tina and Xia Shi's hearts dissipated quite a bit, replaced by the attachment to Noah that had been hidden deep in their hearts for the past 3 years. Please don't say that, brother. Tina smiled at Noah. You've changed my fate as a dirty assassin, and let me find a true home. Compared to the shameful work I've done before, the things I've done in the past 3 years really aren't hard at all. I think so too. Xia Shi's expression didn't change, but his eyes were fixed on Noah. If it weren't for the president, I might have died long ago, not to mention getting a new life. I'm very satisfied with my current life, and I don't think it's hard at all. That's good. Noah patted Tina and Xia Shi's heads affectionately. I'll have a good chat with you later. Now, let me talk about business. With that, Noah glanced at Holy Son of Heaven. Sensing Noah's gaze, Holy Son of Heaven immediately understood that Noah's words were also directed at him, and his heartbeat quickened. What? only Mugging threw a tantrum. I'm just complaining, I'm not really blaming him. Looking at Mugging's tantrum, Noah really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When he saw Mugging on TV, Noah thought that this orphan of the Tentong family had changed a lot, and compared to 3 years ago, she was much more mature in all aspects. Now, Noah knew that in fact, although this girl was mature, some aspects still hadn't changed. It was exactly the same as 3 years ago. Okay. Noah became serious and asked such a sentence. What is that, Wuxiang Association? Everyone restrained the expression on their faces and became serious. Then, Mugging spoke. Actually, we don't know the origin of this so-called Wuxiang Association. You don't know? Noah was a little stunned. Undoubtedly, when the terrorist leader mentioned the Wuxiang Association, Mugging and Holy Son of Heaven had a reaction. How could they not know the origin of the other party? Holy Son of Heaven didn't know if he saw what Noah was thinking, but he said so. The reason why President Tentong and I know the existence of the Wuxiang Association is because, since a year ago, the members of this organization have been active in various countries around the world, and they have been carrying out unknown criminal actions. Moreover, our guild and the Wuxiang Association have had many conflicts in this year, which caused us a lot of losses. Mugging continued Holy Son of Heaven's words. I tried my best to get the intelligence department to collect information on this organization, but the information collected was very limited. At present, I only know that the members of this organization have pentagrams decorated with feathers on their bodies. Moreover, the more feathers they have, the higher their status in the organization. Mugging's words reminded Noah of the tattoo branded on the terrorist leader's neck. He remembered that the tattoo seemed to be decorated with a pair of feathers. In other words, the terrorist leader's level in the Wuxiang Association was 2 wings, which was only 1 level higher than the most basic member. Is there no way to confirm who is behind this organization? Noah asked. Do you only know the organization's hierarchy and member characteristics? There is no way to confirm, at least for now. The person behind the Wuxiang Association has not been confirmed. Mugging replied. The only information that can be confirmed is that the top operatives in this organization have 5 wings tattooed on their body, and it seems that there is more than one person. Other than that, there is no way to confirm the authenticity of the information. There is no way to confirm the authenticity of the information? Noah closed his eyes, then immediately opened them again, and asked very abruptly. Then, in this information, is there a part of the highest person in charge related to the mechanized soldier project? The highest person in charge related to the mechanized soldier project? The girls suddenly froze. In order to fight against protozoa, the plan to use the power of Ryum to create the strongest soldiers, the mechanized soldier project. The highest people in charge of this project were the 4 scientists who were known as having the smartest minds in the world. And these 4 scientists were the following people. The highest person in charge of the Australian branch, Obelisk, Arthur Shannock. The highest person in charge of the American branch, next, Ayn Rand. The highest person in charge of the Japanese branch, New Human Creation Project, Muroto Jean. And the highest person in charge of the German commander's mechanized soldier project, Albrecht Grunewald. Because they had the smartest minds in the world, these 4 people in charge of the mechanized soldier project were also known as the 4 wise men. Rentaro was the mechanical soldier created by the highest person in charge of the Japanese branch, New Human Creation Project, Muroto Jean. Hina was the mechanical soldier created by the highest person in charge of the American branch, next, Ayn Rand. Therefore, the people present were no strangers to the highest person in charge of the mechanized soldier project. The question was, why did Noah ask this question? When Mugging, Xingzi, and Xiaoshi were puzzled, Hina explained for everyone. Before the attack began, the people who led me away were 2 mechanical soldiers. Mugging and Xingzi's expression changed. Chapter 2108. Both Mugging and Seiko were the supreme commanders of their respective regions. Therefore, no one knew better than Mugging and Seiko what the appearance of the 2 mechanical soldiers meant. In the past, in order to defeat the protozoa, the four scientists known as the Four Wise Men gathered together and launched the Mechanized Soldier Project, intending to use it to fight against the protozoa and save mankind. However, after the cursed child was confirmed, the project was disbanded. The reason was simple. It was because it cost a lot to build a mechanical soldier. Take Rentaro for example. His metal prosthetic limbs were made from suNI. Not to mention the labor required in the manufacturing process, just the suNI metal alone required a lot of money. Although suNI was only an alloy, in the current era where the protozoa were rampant, suNI was a precious metal that even protozoa with a level 5 regenerative ability had a chance of eliminating. Its value was definitely much more expensive than gold of the same amount. Just think about it. Even if gold was used to build a right hand and a right foot, it would still require a lot of money, right? If it were superalloy, which was even more valuable than gold, just the materials required to create a mechanical soldier like Rentaro's would already be extremely expensive, not to mention the labor and technology required to create it. Noah didn't even know which tycoon had the ability to spend so much money to gather so many superalloy metals and build an entire human body, transforming that useless piece of trash, bodyguard Joie, into a mechanical soldier. One could only imagine how much money was needed to build a mechanical soldier. The cursed child, on the other hand, was born with power beyond the scope of human beings. In comparison, if there was a cursed child that didn't need to be cultivated, naturally, no one would think that it was worthwhile to spend money on the production of mechanical soldiers. Therefore, the Mechanized Soldier Project, which was once created by the four smartest minds in the world, was naturally announced as a failure. All the research institutes were disbanded, and the mechanical soldiers that had been produced were dismissed. Now, almost all of the mechanical soldiers that had been produced had become facilitators, leading powerful initiators to form police partners. In the IP ranking, most of the facilitators among the high-ranking police partners were mechanical soldiers. Li Ching-yin, for example, had been ranked 134th on the IP rankings a few years ago. Now, he was almost in the top 30. Take Rentaro for example. After 3 years of hard work and training, he was now ranked 7th on the IP rankings. He was definitely much stronger than before. Tina, on the other hand, had combined the two superpowers of the cursed child and the mechanical soldiers, making her the strongest initiator. Under such circumstances, the Wuxiang Association was able to send out 2 mechanical soldiers. Either they were hired like the celestial chrysanthemum prime minister, or the organization has one of the 4 sages. Mugging frowned and looked at Noah. It's very likely that they're just hired. Indeed, most people would think that way, Noah said coolly. However, among the 2 mechanical soldiers, one of them is an excellent bodyguard. Mu Gung and Xia Shixian were first stunned and then stood up in surprise. The Holy Son of Heaven was even more stunned and at a loss of what to do. After all, the bodyguard was once the captain of the Holy Son of Heaven's bodyguard team. Moreover, he was the culprit that caused Noah to not participate in the Third Battle of Tokyo and almost caused the Tokyo area to be destroyed by the Protozoa army. Therefore, if it was just a name, I believe that no one would forget this guy. Especially the Holy Son of Heaven. He saw Noah kill the bodyguard right in front of him. So you're saying that the bodyguard survived because he was mechanized? The Holy Son of Heaven clenched his hands and looked at Noah. You suspect that it was the people from the Wuxiang Association who mechanized the bodyguard and used him as a combat force in this attack. Otherwise, now that the plan has stopped, no one would continue to produce mechanical soldiers out of the original intention of saving humanity, right? Noah glanced at Tina's direction. The person in charge of America's Next restarted the plan without permission and even sent the cursed child to the operating table to create a mechanical soldier that was more powerful than a pure human, but he's already dead. Tina lowered her head and fell silent. Noah reached out and patted Tina's head in silent consolation before continuing, "Don't worry. As for the bodyguard Zhuo Ren, he was killed by me 3 years ago. Now that he has reappeared as a mechanical soldier, it must be one of the 4 sages who initiated the plan without permission and threw him into the attack launched by the 5 Xiang Association. Therefore, I think that there is a possibility that one of the 4 sages is in the 5 Xiang Association. Mugging and the Holy Son of Heaven looked at each other and fell into a state of shock. Only Xia Shi, the cursed child who was known as the think tank, said this in the face of Noah's speculation. President, do you think that the person in charge of Japan's new human creation plan, Mugging Gene, is also a suspect? I don't know. Noah shook his head and looked at the Holy Son of Heaven. However, 3 years ago, Rentaro told me that Mugging Gene was in the Tokyo area. Now that 3 years have passed, Mugging Gene should still be in the Tokyo area, right? As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes were focused on the Holy Son of Heaven. Under everyone's gaze, the Holy Son of Heaven calmed down after the initial panic and nodded at Noah. Dr. Mugging is indeed still in the Tokyo area. According to the information, Ridaro-san's prosthetic arm and Ms. Tina Sprinter's reconnaissance aircraft were both maintained by Dr. Mugging. Yes. Tina nodded and confirmed the Holy Son of Heaven's words. Mike Sandfeld was indeed maintained by Dr. Mugging, so I would meet with Dr. Mugging every once in a while. The same goes for Ridaro-san. Indeed, Ridaro-san used to meet with Dr. Mugging regularly. Although I have never met Dr. Mugging, I have heard a lot of rumors from Ridaro-san, Mugging said hesitantly. As far as I know, although Dr. Mugging is a little weird, he shouldn't be the kind of person who would do unspeakable things. That's what I thought too, big brother. Tina turned to Noah with a serious expression. I don't think Dr. Mugging is a suspect. Even if he's not a suspect, Mugging must know more about the other people in charge of the plan than us, Noah said. So, I think it's necessary to meet with Dr. Mugging. Everyone pondered for a while and then nodded. Oh right. Noah thought of something and said to the Holy Son of Heaven. In the attack just now, the body of the long-necked dragon wasn't completely burned. Get someone to collect a small part of it and burn the rest. Also, collect the firearms and ammunition used by the terrorists. Hearing Noah's words, Elysian immediately understood what he meant. You want Dr. Mugging to analyze the long-necked dragon? That's right, there are some things that are worth paying attention to, Noah said with a shrug. As for the firearms and ammunition collected, I'll get the young lady of the Sima family to analyze it for me. What? Mugging stood up abruptly and shouted at Noah. You're going to ask Wei Weaver? Is there a need to be so surprised? Noah's mouth twitched. After all, it's a matter of weapons. Isn't it natural to ask the young lady of the world's largest weapons company? I don't agree. Mugging grabbed Noah's shoulder and shook it desperately. Listen, Noah, you can't go see that snake woman. You finally came back, I don't want you to disappear again. Why would I disappear if I go see Wei Weaver? Isn't that obvious? That snake woman will definitely eat you alive. She's not a scourge. No, she's a scourge, the most ferocious scourge in the world. If you come into contact with her, you will be infected and become one of her kind. Isn't that cursing Wei Weaver as a primitive animal? That's why you can't go see her. I've already posted a request in the guild for the S-Class police to deal with that monster. It's okay, it'll be over soon. What do you think the guild is? Chapter 2109. Noah had to repeat again that Mugging really didn't change at all. Even if the childishness on the outside had completely faded and he became very mature, the inner childishness was still retained. It had been 3 years, but when it came to Weaver, Mugging still had a bitter and agitated look. This made Noah really begin to doubt whether it was a wise choice to let Mugging handle the guild. Noah could only be glad that now that Fairy Tale had the ability to become the world's overlord, Mugging was also entangled with all kinds of things. He was so busy that he didn't have time to care about personal grudges. Otherwise, with Mugging's hatred for Weaver, it was really possible for him to abuse his power for personal gain and lead the entire Fairy Tale to flatten the Sima family and eliminate Weaver. In the end, in a flurry, Hina and Xiaoshi finally stopped and planned to imprison Noah with handcuffs. They didn't want to let Noah see Mugging. And because of Mugging's disturbance, the original serious business couldn't be discussed, so many problems were not mentioned. For example, during the attack, the question of how the military helicopter used by the terrorists was able to smuggle the long-necked protozoa into the Tokyo area had yet to be solved. Of course, this problem was no longer a problem that Noah and the others needed to pay attention to, but as the ruler of the Tokyo area, Xingzi needed to pay attention to it. Therefore, after Mugeng's disturbance, the following matters became somewhat unimportant. Then, Mugeng was taken away by Hina and Xiaoshi. Not sure if it was intentional, the three girls didn't find Noah to leave together, but let Noah stay in the holy residence alone with Xingzi. Noticing that it was suddenly two people alone, Xingzi lowered his head and rubbed his hands nervously. After 3 seconds, he immediately surrendered. I'll let people collect the long-necked dragon's body and the terrorists' guns and ammunition. You go to my room first. After leaving such a sentence, Xingzi ran away without a trace. Noah could only smile bitterly, and according to his memory, he came to Xingzi's room. Kacha, with the slight sound of the door opening, the boudoir, which was regarded as an idol by the people in the Tokyo area, entered Noah's field of vision and was fully presented. It was a room that was no different from the image in Noah's memory. In other words, in 3 years, Xingzi's room didn't change much, and it was still exactly the same as 3 years ago, exactly the same as Noah's memory. The position of the bed didn't change. The position of the furniture didn't change. The position of the table and chairs didn't change. Even the fluttering curtain in front of the window didn't seem to change, it was still as white as 3 years. Xingzi's room, Xingzi, Xingzi's SS, Xingzi. Xingzi's right. 8 teat. It was a piano. Xingzi's teat, S. Back then, when he first came to this room, Noah was also attracted by this piano. However, it was different from now. At that time, he was only attracted because he wanted to play a song on a whim. Thinking back to that time, Noah sat down, closed his eyes, and recalled the piano skills that he hadn't used for a long time. His hands involuntarily began to play. Ding! The sound of the zither, which was as light as a bell, became the first note that Noah pressed. In the next second, an exceptionally pleasant tune began to play rhythmically, reverberating throughout the entire room. It was a song that could awaken memories. The first time he came to this room and played the piano on a whim, Noah played this song. At that time, Noah put his emotions into this song. He left the fairy tale world and established the fairy tale guild in another world. He fought against various evil forces for more than a year. At that time, Noah put his emotions into the song. He missed his hometown, missed his companions in the guild, and missed his family. Perhaps it was because of the emotional relationship. At that time, the song that Noah played was undoubtedly very beautiful. Even Xingzi was attracted to it. Come to think of it, that should be the beginning of Noah's first private communication with the Holy Son of Heaven. If it wasn't for that song, perhaps Sage Son of Heaven wouldn't have had the chance to fall in love with Noah. Thinking of this, Noah once again played this song. What he put into it was not the thoughts of his hometown or his family, but the memories of the past. He recalled the first time they met, but because of a dispute due to different standpoints, that holy girl showed selflessness. He recalled that when he defeated the Scorpio constellation, but because he couldn't deal with the main culprit, Chrysanthemum Tendo, that holy girl was speechless. He recalled that when Shiwu Zhongshuan came to Tokyo for talks, but because he couldn't understand the dictator, that holy girl showed helplessness. He recalled that when the Third Battle of Tokyo broke out, but because she couldn't get his help, that holy girl showed helplessness. Also, when he was about to leave this world and start a new journey, in order to express her feelings to him, that holy girl showed shyness and reluctance. All of these, accompanied by Noah's memories, were poured into this song. Along with each syllable, each section of rhythm, they jumped in the surrounding space. After a long time, the song full of memories gradually came to an end. Noah stopped playing and opened his eyes. In the next second, Noah saw it. At the door of the room, a holy girl wearing a wedding dress stood there, both hands covering her mouth. Her cheeks were already wet, and tears kept dripping down. Seeing this scene, Noah was not surprised, nor did he panic. His heart was filled with inconceivable calmness. Standing up, step by step, he walked in front of the Holy Son of Heaven. Noah stretched out his hand and gently wiped the girl's tears, gently asking, "Why are you crying?" The Holy Son of Heaven didn't answer immediately, but still let Noah wipe away her tears. After a long time, she squeezed out a voice with difficulty. "I don't know why, but I feel like crying. You really don't know why?" Noah helped the Holy Son of Heaven wipe her tears as he said this. "Isn't it because you feel wronged to wait for me for so long? Is that why you're crying?" The Holy Son of Heaven shook her head and whispered, "I don't feel wronged. I just feel that it's great that you can come back." This one sentence expressed all the feelings in the girl's heart. Noah silently wiped away the tears on the girl's face, then reached out his hand and gently hugged the country's head of state, who was idolized by the people of Tokyo and even other regions. The Holy Son of Heaven stopped crying, her face slightly reddened, but she didn't resist. She obediently snuggled into Noah's arms, listening to his heartbeat. She felt an unprecedented sense of happiness, spreading throughout her heart. Then, Noah spoke. "Although I don't think there's a need to ask, but in order to prevent this from being just my wishful thinking, let me ask." Unfortunately, this time, the Holy Son of Heaven shook her head. "Please don't ask anything." The Holy Son of Heaven closed her eyes and said very peacefully, "Because, you're definitely not wishful thinking." "Is that so?" Noah hugged the Holy Son of Heaven and whispered in her ear, "You don't regret it? I know that you have a lot of secrets, and I also know that you have a lot of things that I don't know." The Holy Son of Heaven answered without hesitation. "But, even if you tell me that you're not a human, I still won't regret it." At this moment, Noah knew that it was useless to say anything more. Thus, Noah gently lifted the girl's chin, and in her slightly panicked eyes, he stole her first kiss. The helpless whimper dissipated into the air, and a second later, it turned into rapid breathing. The girl was helplessly captured by the domineering man's lips, struggling to no avail. In the end, she could only shyly close her eyes and immerse herself in the kiss. This also meant that this relationship that was delayed for 3 years finally had a result. Chapter 21:10. The day of Noah's return was undoubtedly very long. Even for Noah, he had been busy with a lot of things on this day. First, he returned to Fairyland and witnessed the heyday of fairy tale. Then, he rushed to the Tokyo area and encountered Muging's attack. Then, there was the establishment of his relationship with the Holy Sun. After one thing after another, even if Noah had unlimited stamina, he still felt that this day was unusually long, and it made him feel a little tired. Especially after Noah's return, Mugging had the tendency to throw all the work that the guild leader should do back to him, making Noah feel that he had just returned but did not even have time to rest. Fortunately, due to the attack, the international conference held by the various countries was postponed to 3 days later. Otherwise, the next day, Mugging would definitely let Noah attend the conference as the true guild leader of Fairy Tale. In fact, Mugging did have such thoughts. The news of Noah's return had spread throughout Fairyland. Now, all the well-informed people already knew that the true master of Fairyland had returned. Under such circumstances, the various countries' representatives who had been on guard against Fairyland would not know that Noah had returned. Therefore, everyone began to be curious about what kind of person the guild leader of Fairy Tale, who had the ability to dominate the world, was. And was there any meaning to his return at this time? Perhaps it was because of this relationship that the various countries' representatives took the initiative to postpone the international conference. After all, in order to achieve something in the meeting, everyone needed some time to prepare in the face of Noah, who had appeared out of nowhere. They did not want to be caught off guard in the meeting when they did not know this person. In other words, although it had not been announced, almost everyone thought that Noah would attend the international conference in 3 days' time. Or rather, as the true guild leader of Fairy Tale, it would be fake if he did not attend this international conference. No matter what, anyone with a discerning eye could see that this international conference was about fairy tale. Therefore, it was reasonable for Noah to attend the international conference as the president. Not only did the others think so, but Mugung also thought so. Since Noah was back, it would be more appropriate to hand over the international conference to Noah. In response, Noah said helplessly, "Don't worry. Things have to be done one by one. Since the international conference is 3 days later, we have to settle the rest of the things in these 3 days." What is it? Wuxiang Association. This mysterious organization that had appeared out of nowhere, it was impossible not to know about it. Perhaps in the eyes of others, Noah, as a guild leader who had the ability to dominate the entire world, would only care about these small fries if he had nothing better to do. There were so many shady organizations in the world. How could they manage all of them? This idea was not without reason. However, this so-called Wuxiang Association was definitely not some small fries. Could small fries be able to control stage 4 gastronomic animals and make use of them? It could not be, right? At least, in this world, let alone Noah, even Mugung and the Holy Sun had never seen or heard of such a method to control gastronomic animals. In other words, although this Wuxiang Association had appeared out of nowhere, it had done something that no country in the world could do. Based on this alone, Noah felt that he could not ignore this mysterious organization. Even if he did not care, Fairyland was such a large territory that he needed to protect. If he did not pay attention to it, he would lose more than he gained if he fell into a trap. If Noah, who had killed countless gods, were to suffer in the hands of a group of humans who were worse than scum, then he should really find a place to end his own life. Noah did not want to look down on a group of ants hiding in the dark. No one knew if they would suddenly crawl out and bite him. Because of this, Noah felt that he should first meet one of the strongest minds in this world. However, in order to prevent yesterday's attack from happening again, Noah needed to arrange some backup plans. In the living room of the holy residence, the Holy Sun, Mugung, Hina, and Xiaoshi looked at each other. In front of the group of 4 girls, Aster, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith, the 4 petite girls, stood in a line and looked at the Holy Sun and the others with the same expressionless face. Looking at the 4 little girls, the Holy Sun, Mugung, Hina, and Xiaoshi looked at each other. The Holy Sun was the first to speak and asked tentatively. "These children are," Noah scratched his face and said to his 4 contracted partners, "How should I put it? Introduce yourselves." Hearing this, Aster, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith looked up at the same time. Aster said expressionlessly, "I am Master's sword." Athena said faintly, "I have some bad luck with this guy." Orpheus said concisely, "He's family with Noah." Lilith tilted her head and said directly, "Someone who has always been with Noah." The unique self-introductions did not make the crowd feel relieved. Instead, it made them look at each other in dismay once again. "Okay, my bad." Noah covered his face and said helplessly, "Just think of it as the initiator that I found in these 3 years." This was enough to explain everything. However, Hina had a reaction to this. "I can't pretend that I didn't hear this." Tina, who would become sleepy during the day due to the owl factor, instantly woke up. She took a step forward and made a sound. "Brother's initiator should be me." Tina's words caused Aster, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith to turn their gazes toward her. "Oh." Athena smiled. "So you want to steal Master from us, right?" Master? Hina's expression became interesting. So that's how it is?" Mugung and Xiaoshi were shocked. They took a few steps back and looked at Noah in a completely different light. "So you've been playing this game for the past 3 years? You?" Even Elysian Tianzi looked at Noah with a worried expression. "Do you like this kind of game?" "I have to say, I admire your imagination." Noah's eyes twitched. "Let me tell you first, I haven't done anything wrong. Also, I didn't let these children out to make you think of Pian Pian. I wanted them to protect you. Protect us? Elysian Tianzi and Mugging understood what Noah meant. Don't be fooled by their looks. As guards, there's no one more reliable than them in this world. Noah shrugged and looked at Aster and the others. Aster, Athena, you'll be in charge of protecting Elysian Tianzi. Orpheus, Lilith, you'll be in charge of protecting Mugging. Is that okay? What about Master? Aster gazed at Noah. His pair of purple eyes flickered with a mysterious luster as he spoke. Master doesn't need us anymore? She was still the same as before, able to speak so ambiguously with just one sentence. I'll go out for a while. Noah patted Aster's head. You guys stay and protect Elysian Tianzi and Mugging. Aster, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith raised their heads and looked at Elysian Tianzi and Mugging. After a while, they nodded and agreed. As for Elysian Tianzi and Mugging, they looked at Noah. Mugging said directly. Do you want to see Dr. Mugging? Yes. Noah nodded and patted Tina's shoulder. So, Tina, can you be my tour guide and guard for now? An ecstatic smile appeared on Tina's face. Noah exchanged a look with Elysian Tianzi. Elysian Tianzi looked at Noah and said softly. Be careful. Noah nodded. Chapter 21:11. The scorching sun shone mercilessly in the sky, illuminating the bustling streets. Noah and Tina were walking together on a street that was bustling with pedestrians. Tina seemed to be in a very good mood. She hummed a song while holding on to Noah's hand like a little girlfriend. Her face didn't have the confusion that would appear during the day, nor did it have the coldness that would appear during the night. Instead, there was only the cheerfulness and happiness of an ordinary little girl. After coming out of the holy residence, Tina had been in this state. Noah allowed Tina, who was in high spirits, to hold his hand. Looking at Tina, who was in a very good mood, he couldn't help but smile and ask. What made you so happy? Of course it's going out with Big Brother. Tina answered without hesitation. Whenever I think of Big Brother by my side, I'm very happy. Is that so? The smile on Noah's face more or less disappeared and he sighed. But, we didn't come out to play. We have serious business to do. It's okay. Tina's mood didn't lower at all and she smiled at Noah. As long as I can be with Big Brother, I don't mind going anywhere. Saying this, Tina even tightened her grip on Noah's arm as if she wanted to increase the persuasiveness of her words. Her still childish face was filled with a happy smile. Looking at Tina like this, Noah felt a sense of apology in his heart. Undoubtedly, it was he who brought this child into fairy tale and changed this child's life without permission. However, he willfully left her and made her work hard for the career and dreams that he left behind. This made Noah feel very apologetic. Although this was for Tina's good and Tina herself was very satisfied with her current life, but looking at Tina's happy expression, Noah felt that he still owed this girl. Thinking of this, Noah began to seriously look at Tina. Compared to 3 years ago, the current Tina didn't seem to have changed much. A head of long silver hair that draped over her shoulders gently flowed. A pair of blue eyes that were as beautiful as water ripples. A childish face that was as cute as a doll. A dress that embellished the charm of a young girl. Other than being a little taller than before, Tina didn't change much. After all, the difference between a 10-year-old girl and a 13-year-old girl wasn't that big. Even if there was a saying that a girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood, Tina still hadn't reached that age. In another 2 or 3 years, the changes would probably be much greater than now. However, compared to the first time they met, the current Tina was undoubtedly much brighter than before. At least, that was the case when she was with Noah. Hence, at this moment, in the eyes of outsiders, Tina was an extremely cute foreign girl, and she attracted the gazes of many passers-by. That child is so cute, and she's a foreigner, she's like a doll, I want a hug, but, Why do I feel like I've seen this child somewhere before? The whispers of the passers-by were clearly heard by Noah, and he cursed in his heart. Unlike before when she was only active as an assassin in the inner world, the current Tina was known to all as the ace of the fairy tale, the world's strongest initiator. Under such circumstances, Tina had also been on TV many times and must have received a lot of attention. If she was recognized here, it would be a little troublesome, wouldn't it? After all, although the Tokyo area was an ally of Fairyland, there were still many humans in this area who hated the cursed child. Who knew if there would be someone with brain damage who would suddenly run out to cause trouble? With this in mind, Noah patted Tina's hand and said softly, "Let's pick up the pace." Hearing this, Tina was slightly taken aback but immediately noticed the situation around them and nodded understandingly. However, Noah still clearly noticed the slight disappointment in Tina's eyes. Seeing this, Noah smiled helplessly and patted Tina's head. "Don't look so disappointed, we'll come out together again next time." Tina's eyes lit up and she smiled again. With Noah in tow, she quickened her pace and walked forward. Not long after, the two came to the front of a hospital. It was a hospital affiliated to a university. Under Tina's lead, Noah walked into the affiliated hospital, and the strong smell of disinfectant immediately wafted into his nose. In the hospital, many doctors in white coats and nurses in nurse uniforms saw Noah, but when they saw Tina beside Noah, their expressions immediately changed and they chose to stay away. It seemed that the doctors and nurses here had some understanding of Tina's identity. Tina seemed to have gotten used to this. She walked up to the counter and asked the lady at the counter, "I'm sorry, I'm looking for my room doctor." "The doctor is at the usual place." It seemed like it was not the first time the receptionist had dealt with Tina, and she said directly, "Just like before, just go there." "Understood." Tina nodded, then returned to Noah's side and held Noah's hand with a smile on her face. "Big brother, come with me." Noah naturally didn't have any objections to this, and he followed Tina toward the northern staircase. Maybe it was Noah's illusion. From here on, the number of pedestrians seemed to decrease a lot. And at the end of the corridor at the stairs, there was a square cave on the ground. At first glance, it looked like a trap. But upon closer inspection, there was actually a steep flight of stairs inside the cave. Standing in front of the stairs, Noah only felt a strange smell faintly coming from inside, which made Noah frown slightly. Unfortunately, Noah was not unfamiliar with this strange smell. Because, it was the unique smell of corpses. "Tina," Noah said with a strange expression. "Is this a morgue?" "Yes." Tina also let out a bitter laugh. "Doctors usually live in the morgue." Noah's mouth twitched. The world's most powerful brain lives in a morgue. What kind of hobby is this? With this thought in mind, Noah followed Tina down the stairs and entered an underground tunnel that had a bit of a haunted house atmosphere. And at the end of the tunnel, there was a door carved with an exaggerated demon statue. Looking at this door, Noah began to confirm that this was definitely a strange person. Only Tina, with a look of indifference, pushed open the door and walked in. What appeared in front of them was a dark but surprisingly spacious room. There was an operating table, a desk, sophisticated instruments, a blackboard full of formulas, and so on in the room. It did not feel like a morgue, but more like an operating room or a research institute. Noah could even see that there was a corpse that had been embalmed lying on the operating table here, and there were also culture tanks filled with the corpses of primitive animals, which made his hair stand on end. If someone said that this was hell, there would definitely be people who would be willing to believe it, right? Noah could not help but say. Would anyone really be willing to live here? I don't think so. Tina's tone was full of uncertainty. But, the doctor is a very strange person. In other words, the doctor really liked to live in a place like this. Noah was speechless. As the saying went, there was only a fine line between a genius and a lunatic, and a smart person often meant that they were also strange people. One of the strongest minds in the world was definitely an out-and-out weirdo. That's strange, is the doctor not here? Tina began to look around as she walked in. Doctor, are you here? Noah followed behind Tina as she called out to him. His gaze swept over the culture tanks that contained the carcasses of the primitive intestinal animals. Slap, suddenly, a hand grabbed Noah's foot. A sense of horror immediately rushed from Noah's feet to his spine. Noah turned around abruptly, lowered his head, and looked under himself. As a result, a face covered by long bangs was imprinted in Noah's eyes. Just as Noah was about to throw a punch, the face spoke. "Is there anything to eat?" Noah almost broke down. Chapter 21:12. In the dim morgue, a woman in a white coat was sitting in front of an office desk. She was desperately eating the white rice in the lunchbox in front of her, covering her entire face with rice grains. Noah and Tina sat side by side in front of each other, and both of them fell into a state of speechlessness at the sight of each of them gorging themselves like hungry ghosts. Especially Noah. Not only was he speechless, but he also had an indescribable feeling in his heart. The woman in front of him was eating and drinking like a starving ghost. If one only looked at her appearance, she was simply sloppy to the extreme. His skin had a sickly pallor. Her bangs were messy and long, covering half of her eyes. Undoubtedly, she had a pretty face. However, her eye sockets were slightly sunken, and there were dark circles around her eyes. If it weren't for the fact that she was wearing a white coat, no one would believe that this woman was one of the smartest people in the world. That's right. This woman was Miroto Jean. She was one of the people in charge of the Mechanical Soldier Project, the chief doctor of Rintaro, and a great scientist who was determined to save mankind with mechanical soldiers. Is this what they mean by, "Don't judge a book by its cover"? Even though I had the same thought when I first met the doctor, it's a little rude of you to say that, big brother. Noah and Tina both wore wry smiles on their faces as they looked on at Miroto, and their emotions were extremely complex. After an unknown amount of time, Miroto finally finished her lunchbox. Phew. Miroto Jean let out a long sigh of relief. I'm finally alive. Noah and Hina looked at each other. Doctor. Hina raised her hand and asked meekly. How long has it been since you last ate? How long will it take? Miroto placed the lunchbox on the table and asked without any hesitation. It's been about a week. 1 week? Tina was taken aback. Then why didn't you go out to eat? You want me to go out? Miroto Jean raised an eyebrow and said without hesitation. Then I might as well die here. Tina was rendered speechless by this invincible statement. The corners of Noah's eyes twitched. It's just going out for a meal. Why do you have to risk your life? Isn't that obvious? Muido Kino said sternly. Today's world is completely finished. Everywhere is filled with the disgusting smell of men's sweat and the disgusting smell of women's perfume. Moreover, there's also sunlight. If I'm exposed to it, I'd rather die here. Die from exposure to light? Noah felt that his worldview had been broadened. And it's a serious case of squatting at home? Anyway, I have a computer. Even if I don't step out, I can know what's going on outside. Since that's the case, what's the point of going out? Muido Kino waved her hand in disgust. My world only needs this little bit of land. I don't need anything else. What's important is. Noah and Tina unconsciously leaned forward. Then, Muido Kino smiled. What's important is that it's very tiring to go out, so I don't want to go out. Tina almost lost her balance and fell to the ground. Noah's lips twitched, and he turned his head away as if he couldn't bear to look at her. So, she wasn't just a weirdo. She was also a weirdo. At this moment, Muido Kino seemed to have noticed Noah. She looked at Noah for 3 seconds before losing interest. I thought Tina would bring me a corpse. What a bummer. Do you want to see a corpse more than a living person? There have been too few deaths recently. Instead, there are more and more corpses of primitive animals. I almost don't have any new corpses to report here. They're all those stinky primitive animals. Don't human corpses stink? Ah, when will I get a new corpse? I want to find a boyfriend. Hurry up and bring it to me. Is it okay to find a corpse to be a boyfriend? Oh right, a lot of terrorists died yesterday. Apparently, they were all killed by attacking Magang. Why don't you bring them here? I'll play with them. I'll dissect them. She was definitely going to say play with them, right? Seeing Muido Kino complaining, Noah felt like his ability to complain had skyrocketed. Even Tina didn't know what to say. She looked at Noah as if she was about to cry. I'm sorry, brother. Even though I've been with Dr. Muido for 3 years, I still can't get used to it. It's okay, it's good that you're not used to it. If he got used to it, he would definitely become the second weirdo that people couldn't bear to look at. Noah patted Tina's head comfortingly. He then looked at Muido Kino, who was laughing at him. You're Dr. Muido, right? I've heard a lot about you. I feel that in this era, many people have begun to gradually forget about me. Because I don't go out, and I'm not as passionate about research as before. Now, I'm just a doctor who likes to dissect corpses. Muido Kino glanced at Noah. On the contrary, I feel like I should say that I've heard a lot about you. Oh. Noah raised his eyebrows. Do you know me? Although I don't want my memory to be so good, at least I can still remember things that happened a few years ago. Muido Kino looked at Noah with a half-smile. The founder of the famous Cursed Child Shelter, the most primitive person who changed the world, and now the leader of a civilian guild that has the ability to become the world's overlord. You should have heard of him before, right? Muido Kino turned around, poured a cup of hot coffee from the kettle, and said. Besides, the little brat and the little girl who often come to my place have mentioned your name more than once. I'm still thinking about when I'll have the chance to meet you. I must see what you look like, the person who started the new era. The person who started the new era? Noah chuckled. Aren't you flattering me a little too much? Being overly modest isn't a good thing. Muido Kino poured 2 cups of coffee and handed one to Noah and the other to Tina. I believe you know better than I do how filthy this world had become because of hatred and darkness. Your appearance had made this world that was as dark as sewage much cleaner. Though it is still murky, you at least brought hope. Your fairyland is unquestionably the beginning of a new era, and you have made it develop with that as its goal. Am I wrong? Half right and half wrong, Noah took the coffee and sipped it nonchalantly. Perhaps I want the children of fairyland to be reborn, praying that there would be a day where people would forget their hatred with that place as a starting point. However, Doctor, it's not the world that's dirty, but humans themselves. You're mistaken about that. Humans don't represent the world, you know? Interesting way of putting it. Muido Kino looked at Noah with interest and said meaningfully. But it's because humans can't represent the world that the protogut animals appeared, right? The atmosphere in the morgue instantly turned heavy. All right, let's not talk about these meaningless things. Muido Kino crossed her legs and looked at Tina. Since you brought this brother of yours, you don't want me to defend Sandfeld, do you? Yes. Tina nodded. Actually, it's your big brother who wants to talk to you. That's to be expected. She turned around and looked at Noah. Her eyes, which were covered by her bangs, slowly narrowed. Is it related to the attack yesterday? Most of it. Noah put down the coffee in his hand and met Muido Kino's gaze. It's like this, therefore, Noah told Muido Kino everything that happened last night. Listening to Noah's explanation, Muido Kino's expression became a little solemn. When Noah mentioned Zhuyu, her pupils slightly shrank, and she fell into silence. A protogut animal that can be controlled by humans and a mechanical soldier that can be reborn with just a piece of brain fragment. Muido Kino mocked. So that's where you went, Albrecht Grunewald. Chapter 21:13. Noah and Hina both reacted when they heard Mudo Jin's sarcastic tone. This name. Hina raised her eyebrows and said tentatively. It's the name of the person in charge of the mechanized soldier project, right? That's right. Muto Jin's sarcastic tone didn't weaken. Albrecht Grunewald, who was in charge of the entire mechanized soldier project and was in charge of all of us. That's the guy I just mentioned. Then why are you mentioning him now? Noah frowned. Could it be that he's the one who mechanized Zhuiyuan? Are you trying to say that I'm baseless? Muto Jin curled her lips. But I'm certain that he's the one who mechanized Zhuiyuan. Undoubtedly, Muto Jin's words were baseless, but Noah's frown deepened. Looking at Noah's expression, Muto Kino suddenly said. At the beginning of the mechanized soldier project, Arthur, Anne, and I all had our own research institutes in Japan, the United States, and Australia. You should know this, right? Of course. After all, after the mechanized soldier project was launched, the project was given another name by the person in charge. The Japan branch was called the New Humanity Creation Project. The United States branch was called Next. The Australia branch was called Obelisk. Of course, as the people in charge of the three countries, Muto Jin, Ayn Rand, and Arthur Shannock all had their own research institutes in their own countries. In that case, I want to ask you. Muto Jin looked straight at Noah and said. Have you ever heard of the person in charge of Germany setting up his own research institute in Germany? Noah was stunned for a moment, and then he suddenly understood. That's right. The first three people in charge all had their own research institutes and projects. Only Grunewald, in this regard, only mentioned that he was the highest person in charge of the entire project and that he belonged to the country. There had never been any mention of a German branch project or research institute. That's why that guy has always been weird. Muto Kino clicked her tongue. He didn't set up a research institute in his own country. Instead, he set up his own research facilities in Japan, the United States, and Australia to carry out the mechanization program. Therefore, in Japan, there were also people who were transformed by Grunewald. A Japanese cyborg? Noah's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Looks like you've already figured it out. Muto Kino confirmed Noah's guess. It's that mechanical soldier called Leech Shadow In. What? Tina was shocked. In other words, the Leech Shadow In was not modified by you, but by Professor Grunewald? That's right. Muroto nodded. Although the Leech Shadow In is nominally a mechanical soldier of the New Human Creation Plan, and it was once part of the 787th Mechanized Special Unit of the Eastern Ground Self-Defense Force, it is not under my jurisdiction. It is under the jurisdiction of Grunewald. In other words, the Leech Shadow In was most likely sent by Grunewald to participate in the attack. Since the Leech Shadow In was with the Leech Shadow In, it was very likely that the Leech Shadow In was transformed by Grunewald. But this doesn't seem to be convincing, right? Noah pondered for a moment and said. Even if the Leech Shadow In was transformed by Professor Grunewald, and the Leech Shadow In was with the Leech Shadow In, it still can't be confirmed that the transformation was done by Grunewald. No, I can be sure, Muto Kino said impatiently. Let's put aside the operation of injecting the protozoan virus into the human brain fragment and using the protozoan's regenerative ability to restore the entire brain. Just the technology of putting a human brain into a mechanical body and smoothly connecting the brain to the mechanical body so that the neurons can be transmitted to every corner of the mechanical body and move like one's own body is something I don't have the confidence to do. You don't have the confidence to do it? Tina was shocked. You mean? Noah had a flash of inspiration, and he understood Muto Kino's thoughts. You know what I'm trying to say, right? Muto Kino spread her hands. Since I don't have the confidence to do it, and then Arthur won't be able to do it either. Only Grunewald is obviously more talented than the three of us. I've stolen his mechanical soldier blueprint before, but I couldn't understand a part of the blueprint at all. I can prove it. Now, even Tina understood why Muto Kino was so sure that the Leech Shadow Yin's mechanical surgery was done by Grunewald. It was because among the four wise men, only Grunewald's technology was better than the other three. Therefore, since the large-scale mechanical surgery that even Muto Kino didn't have the confidence to do appeared on the Leech Shadow In, it could only be Grunewald's doing. Also, I can't control the protozoa either, but now, it appeared. So, the only person who can do this is Grunewald. Muido Kino concluded. This guy disappeared for so many years, and I thought he was hiding somewhere. Now, it seems that he's in the so-called Wuxiang Association. As soon as Muido Kino finished speaking, the entire operating theater fell into an indescribable silence. Tina didn't say anything. She just looked at Noah. Noah also fell into silence. After a while, he raised his head and looked at Muido Kino. Can I trust you? This sentence made Muido Kino raise her eyebrows, and then she laughed out loud. Trust? Muido Kino seemed to be laughing so hard that her stomach hurt a little. She held her stomach and waved at Noah as if she couldn't help but laugh. It's better not to. In this era, the trust between people is extremely fragile. I used to be unwilling to trust anyone. After all, I've seen hell before. Chapter 21:14. After coming out of the affiliated university hospital, Noah fell into deep thought as he recalled everything that happened last night and what he said to Miroto. Brother. Hina hugged Noah's hand and spoke softly. Are you still suspicious of Dr. Muto? No, I don't suspect that doctor anymore. Noah shook his head. I think Muto Hina is telling the truth, and her guess is very accurate. Is that so? Hina let out a sigh of relief. It's great that you believe in Dr. Muto. I just think her explanation is the most convincing. Noah smiled helplessly. After all, the person in charge of the American branch is already dead. It's unlikely that the person in charge of the Australian branch would be able to retrieve the brain fragments of an incompetent guard captain that I killed in Tokyo. As for Muto Hina, she hides in the morgue all day long. It would be difficult for her to perform a large-scale surgery. Now that I think about it, Grunewald is undoubtedly the most suspicious person. You're right. Hina nodded. Also, Professor Grunewald set up a research facility in Japan, so it wouldn't be difficult for him to retrieve the brain fragments. Also, the military helicopter that transported the giraffe last night is also very suspicious. Noah touched his chin. According to the Son of Heaven's investigation, the military helicopter didn't belong to the Tokyo area, nor did it belong to any other country. It seems to be a privately made military helicopter without a serial number. It's impossible for such a helicopter to obtain an entry permit and fly into the Tokyo area. Which means that the military helicopter was secretly made in the Tokyo area? Hina tilted her head. But what does that mean? It means that the other party isn't just a terrorist organization. They have sufficient technical support. Noah patted Hina's head. Although we can't be sure that it's Grunewald's doing, it's impossible to build such a military helicopter in secret without some means. Grunewald once set up a research facility here. Whether it's the site, materials, or technology, they're all guaranteed, right? Then, brother, are you sure that Professor Grunewald is in the Wuxiang Association? Hina asked in confusion. But, in the end, why would the Wuxiang Association attack Ms. Mugino? There could be a lot of reasons, Noah said. For example, there's a possibility that some country commissioned the Wuxiang Association to take action. But Big Brother hasn't mentioned this possibility even once, Tina asked. Brother, did you find something? Actually, it's not difficult at all. Noah shrugged. Didn't Wood say that the Five Feathers Association had been targeting Fairy Tale since a year ago? Yeah. Hina wrinkled her little nose. In the past, when I was carrying out missions, I encountered people from the Five Wings Association several times. Every time, they were targeting me. Many people in the guild have also been targeted. Moreover, the higher the IP ranking of the member, the more they would be targeted. If that's the case, then we need to think about what reason our guild has that would cause the Five Xiang Association to target us. Noah suggested. Thinking about it carefully, this time a year ago was also a hint. A year ago. Hina thought hard, but it didn't take long for her to be surprised. Speaking of a year ago, the first thing that came to mind was that the countries around the world finally realized that the number of cursed children in their countries had sharply decreased to the point that they could no longer ignore it, and then they noticed our guild, right? That's right. Noah curled his lips and smiled. It was also at that time that the countries around the world began to feel a sense of crisis, and felt that the world would be ruled by our guild, right? A sense of crisis? Hina seemed to have thought of something. Could it be that the Wuxiang Association also felt the same sense of crisis? Smart. Noah intimately pinched Hina's little nose. You weren't at the scene of the attack last night, so you might not know, but before the terrorist leader committed suicide, he said this sentence: "The world definitely belongs to us. The world definitely belongs to us." Hina's eyes widened. It can't be. The goal of the Wuxiang Association is, that's right. Noah sneered. The ultimate goal of the Wuxiang Association is to rule the world. That's why the Wuxiang Association targeted Fairy Tale. Because, in the current situation, Fairyland's Fairy Tale was the most likely force to rule the world. With such an unimaginable enemy like Fairy Tale appearing out of nowhere, how could the Wuxiang Association, whose goal was to rule the world, not feel a sense of crisis and target Fairy Tale? I'm afraid, the reason why this mysterious organization developed the technology to control gastronomic animals is to rule the world? Noah narrowed his eyes. If they can control gastronomic animals as they wish, then this mysterious organization will be able to destroy all the countries that resist them and establish their own hegemony. This is an organization with great ambition and potential. To think that they're researching ways to control gastronomic animals in order to rule the world. Hina said with a trembling voice. Are these people crazy? Among humans, there will always be some who daydream all day long, and do whatever they can to achieve it. Noah's voice carried a hint of coldness. They never think of others, only think of themselves, causing a lot of trouble for others, and in the end, letting others solve the problems they left behind. Just like what Mudo Kino said, humans are hopeless. Then brother, what should we do? Hina looked up at Noah. Should we find this Five Xiang Association and completely annihilate it? Of course, let these rats hide in the corner and occasionally come out to bite us. We have no reason not to spray rat poison on them. Noah didn't hesitate at all. Since we're sure that they want to hurt us, then we have no reason to let them take advantage of us, even if it's not for ourselves. Yes, even if it's not for ourselves. Hina hugged Noah's arm and smiled. That's because we, Fairy Tale, have always fought to protect our companions and family. Hearing this, Noah also smiled, squatted down, and dotingly patted Hina's head. He looked directly into Hina's eyes and said gently, I'm very happy that you can say that. If brother is happy, then I'm happy. Hina tilted her head and smiled sweetly like never before. Because, everything I have already belongs to brother. Then, Hina moved her head forward and kissed Noah on the lips. Noah was stunned. Huh. Hina's pretty face was slightly red, but her expression was very happy. I finally gave my first kiss to brother. You have to take responsibility? You're so mischievous. Noah smiled bitterly. At this time, Noah heard a conversation around him. Did you see it? I saw it. Should we call the police? Let's call the police, after all, it's an underage girl. Noah suddenly couldn't stay calm. It wasn't until this moment that Noah remembered. He wasn't in a room, nor was he in a deserted place. He was in front of a university hospital, on the road. Noah didn't even need to look to know that the people on the road were looking at him with contempt and indifference. Immediately, Noah hurriedly said, Okay, since we've confirmed what we should confirm, then let's fulfill our promise and go shopping while we still have time. Hina's eyes immediately sparkled, and she was eager to do something. Then let's hurry and go. Tina latched onto Noah's arm as she spoke and ran forward with an elated expression on her face. Looking at Tina's pretty face that was brimming with a smile, Noah, who had only casually uttered an excuse to leave in a moment of desperation, could not find a reason to go back on his words. With a helpless and bitter smile, he allowed Tina to pull him and run forward. Chapter 21:15. After that, Noah accompanied Tina to almost the entire commercial street. In the past, when Noah had first met Tina, he had also taken Tina out for a stroll. That time was probably the first time in Tina's life that she felt human warmth. However, at that time, Yanju and Xiaoshi also went. In the eyes of others, it was like a brother taking three sisters out to play. But this time, there was only Noah and Tina, and it seemed that Tina was even happier than the last time. As such, Tina had completely transformed into a little girl of her age today, and she had been running around with Noah all this time. When they came to a stall selling cold drinks, the little girl would go up and directly order an ice cream and eat it with Noah. When they came to a clothing store with beautiful dresses, the little girl would go in and try on one dress after another, making the shop assistant look at Tina with love in their eyes. One could imagine how cute she was. When they were in the amusement park, the little girl would happily grab Noah's hand and rush inside to play one game after another. In the end, she even sat on the Ferris wheel. On the Ferris wheel, when Noah was not paying attention, she put her small lips on his and gave him a wave of benefits. Even when they met a child who was lost, the little girl would go over and gently comfort the child, and then ask Noah for help. This made Noah not know whether to laugh or cry, and he could only run around again to find the child's mother. In the end, when it was almost evening, Tina seemed to have finally exhausted her energy, and she followed Noah back to the holy residence. "I'm really happy today." Walking in the corridor of the holy residence, Tina held a doll that Noah gave her in her hand and smiled contentedly. "I haven't been this happy in a long time, it's all thanks to Big Brother." "As long as you're happy." Noah smiled slightly. However, I didn't expect Tina to become so playful. In Noah's memory, his impression of Tina was still from 3 years ago. At that time, due to the owl gene in her body, Tina gave off a completely different feeling during the day and at night. However, in general, in front of Noah, Tina had always been a very obedient and quiet little girl. However, after a day of fooling around, Tina had completely transformed into a mischievous young girl that matched her age. Noah was truly taken aback. Tina also seemed to feel a little embarrassed about this. Because Big Brother will definitely be very busy in the future, so I have to take advantage of this time to satisfy myself. "But are you okay?" Noah asked. "Although you once said in the past that even if you have the owl factor, you can still adjust to the time difference and move around during the day. But you were busy the whole night last night and didn't rest at all today. Is it okay?" "It's okay." Tina seemed to want to prove something and gave Noah a smile full of energy. Since reaching the domain, the activity of the protozoan virus in my body has increased a lot, and the owl factor in me has also become much more active. Even if I don't rest during the day, I will automatically adjust to the best state at night, although I will be more tired the next day. Automatically adjust to the best state? It was like the night version of the God Slayer. However, when it comes to the domain, what exactly is it? Noah raised such a question. Although I've heard before that among the police officers in the same profession, a portion of the super high-ranking initiators have reached this so-called domain realm, but when I was still in charge, our guild didn't have a single child who had reached domain. After all, in the past, Fairy Tail was just a civilian organization in the Tokyo area. Even if they recruited most of the outstanding police officers and most of the outstanding cursed children in the Tokyo area, even so, there had never been a pair of police officers in the top 100 IP rankings in the guild. It was only after Tina joined that the situation improved. Of course, at that time, Fairy Tail naturally wouldn't have the initiator who had reached the domain level. Thus, Tina was the first initiator that Noah had ever seen who had reached the domain stage. Therefore, Noah could only be considered to have a partial understanding of the state of domain. Actually, it's not difficult to understand. Tina said. The so-called domain is a state that is reached after breaking through the growth limit point. Other than that, there are no other unknowns. Breaking through the growth limit point? Noah said thoughtfully. Just like how people break through their own limits. It's a bit similar, but the specific aspects are different. Tina organized her words and explained. Just like how humans have their own limits, the cursed children also have their own limits, but this limit depends on the protozoan virus in the body. From a human's point of view, it is the cursed child's own potential. Like Miss Yen Zhu, in the past, she basically didn't train herself. She just kept using her ability, so her speed would continue to grow and become faster and faster. Tina looked at Noah. I used to be the same. As long as I kept using my ability, by the next night, I would find that my eyesight had increased, my sniping accuracy had increased, and my condition was getting better and better. Every night, I would become stronger than the previous night. That's really against the rules. Noah couldn't help but sigh. But, there is a limit, right? Yes. Tina nodded. After continuous growth, one day, we will find that no matter how we use our ability or even train ourselves, we can't improve our strength. We can only turn to honing our skills. In the past, Yen Zhu came to Noah for help because she suddenly couldn't improve her speed, but Noah couldn't do anything about it. He could only turn to teaching Yen Zhu combat skills to hone her combat skills and improve her skills to improve her own strength. It was from then on that Noah asked around and learned about the existence of the domain. No matter which cursed child it is, after their ability has developed to a certain extent, they will enter a period of stagnation. From then on, they will no longer be able to improve their ability. Miss Yen Zhu and I both encountered this problem. In the words of a doctor, it is a bottleneck. Tina said to Noah. However, just like how humans don't know how to ride bicycles, but one day they suddenly know how to ride a bicycle. When the initiator is not satisfied with their own strength and carries out strict self-discipline and training, a portion of them will eventually break through their growth limit and enter a state of regaining growth. That is the domain. Once they enter this state, not only can they regain their growth, but their growth will also be much faster than before. Therefore, there is an unbridgeable gap in strength between those who have reached the domain and those who haven't. It is absolutely impossible for those who haven't reached the domain to defeat those who have reached the domain because of this reason. The first time I reached my growth limit was before I met my big brother. Perhaps it was even earlier than Miss Yen Zhu, Tina said. Until 2 years ago, on a mission abroad, I met my younger sister who used to work under Professor and a younger sister. Noah was stunned for a moment before he realized what she meant. You mean the cursed child who was transformed into a mechanical soldier by Ayn Rand like you? That's right. Tina said with some nostalgia. IP ranked 100th, Ashley Springer XX, nickname, Giant Spiked Lizard. Ranked 98th in IP, Tina Sprout, nicknamed, Black Wind. IP ranked 95th, Irene Spencer, nickname, Meteorite Fall. IP ranked 88th, Faye Miller, nickname, Black Belly. IP ranked 70th, Louise Selesny, nickname, Demon Queen. Ranked 21st in the IP rankings, Rita Sosberry, nicknamed Hades. The 6 above are the people who Professor Ayn Rand bought from the black market under various names when she was still alive. She used mechanical surgery to create these people who have the ability of both cursed children and mechanical soldiers. Tina's voice became a little heavy. After Professor Ayn passed away, all of my sisters also lost their jobs and shelter. Chapter 21:16. Among the police, there was a saying that was not well known, but it was often mentioned. The top 100 police officers in the IP ranking are all people who sold their souls to the devil. Because the police officers who could reach this ranking, whether they were the promoters or initiators, were not ordinary people. For example, among the promoters, some of them were mechanical soldiers. In the eyes of others, they were no longer human. For example, among the initiators, there were many who, like Tina, worked as assassins and took on many dirty jobs. Of course, Tina's sisters, who were all in the top 100 IP ranking, also had hands full of blood. Like Tina, those children were almost all weapons in Ayn Rand's hands. Usually, they only followed Ayn Rand's orders to complete various tasks. Whether it was humans or animals, they had killed countless of them. Following Ayn Rand's death and Tina's disappearance, the children had completely lost their pillar of support. In the end, the sisters could only accept the arrangement of the International Initiator Monitoring Organization and form police partners with unfamiliar promoters in order to survive. Walking in the corridor of the holy abode, Tina hugged the doll in her arms tightly and said in a low voice. But in foreign countries, the cursed child suffered more discrimination and hatred than in Tokyo. The promoters of the sisters were all bastards. Not only did they not treat the sisters as humans, they even wanted to abuse them. Is that so? Noah was silent for a while before speaking. Then what happened? Then, the sisters couldn't take it anymore and killed all the promoters. Tina's voice became a little sorrowful. Of course, the cursed child killed humans, so it naturally aroused the anger of all the adults who hated the cursed child. The government also issued a wanted order, so the sisters could only live a miserable life like street rats. In the end, they could only go to the black market and accept assassin jobs again to survive. After living like this for a year, the children encountered Tina, who went abroad for a mission. At that time, I received a mission to protect a foreign high-ranking official, and the sisters took on the job of assassinating the official. Tina seemed to be completely evoked by the memories and bit her lip. In the eyes of the sisters, I was undoubtedly a traitor after joining the guild. After a year of accumulated grievances and hatred, they turned their swords on me and even tried to kill me. As one of Ayn Rand's sisters, Tina must have built a good relationship with her sisters, right? Even though they weren't related by blood, Noah could easily imagine how terrible it must have been for Tina to attack her younger sisters. Furthermore, in Tina's heart, perhaps she really did think that she had betrayed her sisters. In fact, even Ayn Rand had died because of her, causing all of her sisters to have one foot in hell. That kind of guilt was enough to crush a 10-year-old girl. However, Tina didn't give up. Although it was very uncomfortable, I felt the warmth of home in Fairy Tale. I made many friends and companions here, and I even got to know my big brother. Tina's expression became somewhat resolute. So, I didn't want to die. Even if all of my sisters were on par with me or even stronger than me, including Rita, who was ranked 21st in IP, I didn't want to give up on this life that was saved by my big brother. It was under that kind of resoluteness that Tina resisted. Facing 5 sisters who were on par with her or even stronger than her, Tina gave it her all and started a battle. In the end, under her obsession, Tina found that her abilities that had been stagnant began to gradually improve during the battle, and the rate of improvement was getting faster and faster. In other words, during that battle, Tina successfully broke through the limits of her growth and reached the domain realm. Tina, whose abilities were rapidly improving, finally defeated her 5 sisters and successfully survived. That was my experience of reaching domain. Tina broke free from the memories of the past and smiled at Noah. From then on, my abilities grew again. Just like before, as long as I continued to use my abilities, they would continue to improve. Even now, it hasn't stopped. Perhaps, for Tina, that was not only a breakthrough in her growth limit, but also a breakthrough in her state of mind. Immediately after that, Tina grew rapidly all the way until now. She was ranked first in IP and had obtained the title of the strongest initiator. Noah was silent. After accidentally learning that Tina had such an experience, Noah felt a little regret in his heart. 3 years ago, in order to prevent innocent cursed children from being sent to the operating table by Ayn Rand and losing their lives in vain, Noah stepped into hell. At the same time, in order to save Tina, he resolutely instigated Chiwu Zhongshuan to assassinate Ayn Rand. In the end, Noah forgot that in Ayn Rand's hands, there might be children who had the same abilities as Tina, cursed children and mechanical soldiers. Unexpectedly, the decision at that time, while saving Tina and the children who were not killed, actually caused Tina's sisters to fall into such a situation. That was indeed Noah's mistake. If he had thought of this earlier, Noah would definitely have sent people to bring those children over, right? What happened after that? Noah could only suppress the slight regret in his heart and laughed bitterly. How are your sisters? Hearing this, Tina turned her head and looked at Noah with a pair of sapphire blue eyes. As if seeing Noah's regret in his heart, she smiled slightly. Big brother, if you want to see my sisters, you can do so when you return to the guild. Return to the guild? Noah was slightly taken aback, but he quickly reacted. You mean, it wasn't easy to meet my sisters, how could I let them go? Tina said somewhat playfully. That's why I brought my sisters back to the guild and forced them to join the guild as their elder sister. Right now, my sisters are the best initiators in our guild. Not only that, Rita, who used to be ranked 21st, is now one of the top 10 initiators in our guild. She's even stronger than Miss Yenju. Is that so? Noah's heart was finally at ease. He couldn't help but smile. Then, when we return, let me meet your sisters. My sisters will be very happy. Tina said with a smile. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and began to mutter. But, for me, it's just a little dangerous. Dangerous? Noah blinked. Why? Nothing. For some reason, Tina suddenly became angry and quickened her pace. Tina? Noah could only follow along with a dumbstruck expression on his face. Tina was amused by Noah's question, but at the same time, she sighed inwardly. Because I kept praising Big Brother in front of my sisters, it made them all yearn for Big Brother. Every one of them wants to be Big Brother's sister. How can I say something like that? Holy Residence, Guest Hall. When Noah and Tina returned, Elysian and Mugging seemed to still be discussing the international conference and the attack last night. Xiaoshi followed beside Mugging like a shadow. Aster, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith also followed beside Elysian and Mugging, loyally carrying out the tasks given to them by Noah. However, the four girls only stood silently at the side with a taciturn look. It was not until Noah appeared in the guest hall that the four girls reacted. He's back, he's back, he's back. Orpheus and Lilith immediately noticed Noah's return. One said expressionlessly while the other said with a slightly excited tone. Master. Aster turned to look at Noah. It seems that we have gained something. Athena displayed her extraordinary wisdom. Her seductive snake eyes flashed as if she could see through everything about Noah. President is back. Even Xiaoshi began to speak, interrupting Elysian and Muging's conversation. Only then did Xing Tianzi and Mu Gung turn their gazes to Noah and smile. The difference was that Muging's smile was a reassuring one. Elysian, on the other hand, gave Noah a gentle smile. Chapter 21:17. For a moment, Noah even saw a hint of Mira on the Holy Heavenly Child. That gentle smile was almost the same as Myra's. However, the Holy Heavenly Child's personality was quite similar to Myra's. Although she wasn't as sweet and gentle as Mira, the Holy Heavenly Child was also a gentle girl on the inside. It was just that she had a sense of resignation and purity. With that in mind, Noah returned a smile and exchanged a look with the Holy Heavenly Child. Perhaps Noah and the Holy Heavenly Child both thought that they were being very discreet? Unfortunately, the girls present were extremely sensitive in this regard. When Noah realized this, Tina and Xiaoshi already had tense expressions on their faces. Even Athena was looking at Noah with a hint of a smile, making Noah feel a little guilty. I say, President. Mugging rubbed his forehead as if he was having a headache. I know you've already taken down our Holy Heavenly Child, but can you please wait until you're together in private before showing off your love? Show off our love? The Holy Heavenly Child's face reddened as she panicked. We didn't do that. Really? Mugging narrowed his eyes with an exasperated expression. If I misunderstood, then I apologize. But Holy Heavenly Child, you don't seem to be convincing at all. The Holy Heavenly Child's face became redder and redder. She couldn't help but turn her head away, not daring to look Mugging in the eye. Little did she know that this reaction made it seem as if she was admitting to it. All right. Mugging looked like he couldn't take it anymore. Looks like he really has been taken down, Tina's expression became extremely tense as she spoke in a low voice. As expected, the Holy Heavenly Child is the most dangerous one. I knew that the Holy Heavenly Child had some feelings for the president. Xiaoshi sighed. Who would have thought that he would really be taken down as soon as he returned? While Mugging, Tina, and Xiaoshi were expressing their thoughts, Orpheus and Lilith were still looking on with perplexed expressions. Taken down? Taken down? Taken down? For Lord Dragon God, who was ignorant of worldly affairs, perhaps the world of adults was too complicated. Master. Aster even raised his head and stared at Noah. His mysterious purple eyes flickered with a pitiful color. Have you already taken down the target of your protection? The corner of Noah's mouth twitched under Aster's innocent gaze. He felt more and more guilty. Isn't it good? Athena's expression was indifferent. Since ancient times, heroes have always been loved by young girls. In this aspect, you are already a sufficient hero. Unfortunately, these words were not compliments to Noah at all. It was more like adding insult to injury. The Elysian Emperor's face turned redder and redder. She felt so ashamed that she wanted to run away. The rest of the girls cast their gazes at Noah. There was blame, scrutiny, doubt, and confusion in their gazes. This made Noah feel as if his head was about to explode. Didn't he just smile at her? Did they have to do this? Noah could only roll his eyes and forcefully change the topic. Cut the crap. Did you guys find anything? Mugging and the others also rolled their eyes at Noah's direct change of topic. Only the Elysian Emperor quickly agreed with Noah. We have already collected the firearms and ammunition used by the terrorists last night. We sent them to the Sima family's company and asked them to help us analyze them. Although the person in charge is Unweaver, which makes me a little unhappy. Mugging said unhappily. But, according to them, the analysis results will be out by this time tomorrow. I hope we can find something from the rifling. Rifling refers to the trace left behind by the bullet after it was fired. In the eyes of experts, this trace can give a lot of information, such as the performance of the gun and so on. It can even find out the factory location and the source of the gun and ammunition. Therefore, rifling is also known as the fingerprints of the gun and is often listed as a necessary investigation target in various large-scale cases. However, even murderers know to wear gloves when they commit a crime to prevent exposing their fingerprints. I don't think that a group of well-trained terrorists who even used mechanical soldiers and protozoa will leave any flaws in the rifling. In the end, we won't be able to find any rifling records, right? Noah said to the Elysian Emperor and Mugging in an affirmative tone. But, the Sima family has now almost monopolized the entire weapons business in Tokyo. The guns and ammunition that appear in Tokyo, unless they are smuggled in, will definitely be found out where they were made. If those guns and ammunition were made in Tokyo, it proves that the terrorists are likely to have their own underground arsenal. The Elysian Emperor's tone was a little solemn. Even if it is for the residents of Tokyo, they must be found. I will leave this to you. Noah shrugged. I just think that before we find out, you should be attacked again. Us? The Elysian Emperor and Mugging suddenly cast a speechless look at Noah. Noah was stunned and asked curiously. Why are you looking at me like that? The Elysian Emperor and Miss Mugging want to tell the president, please don't forget yourself. Xiaoshi interrupted. Please don't forget, now, you are the terrorists' primary target. Hearing that, Noah finally understood what they were trying to say. The terrorists attacked Mugging because Mugging was the acting president of Fairy Tale, the leader of a force that now had the ability to compete for world domination. The Elysian Emperor was attacked because he was the only head of state that stood in the position of an ally of Fairyland. Now that Noah was back, the terrorists' target naturally turned to the master who would decide whether Fairyland would become the world's overlord. Noah had been paying attention to the safety of Mugging and the Elysian Emperor, but he forgot. Now, he was the terrorists' primary target. I really forgot about it. Noah could not help but laugh. But, if they are only targeting me, then that's great. After all, Noah had to pay attention to the terrorists because he needed to take care of the people around him. If it was only his problem, then, for Noah, it was really easy to solve. Not to mention, the little girls around Noah would not let the terrorists do whatever they wanted. No matter who they are, as long as I am with Master, then we will not lose. Aster said expressionlessly. I am Master's sword, so I will protect Master. Protect Noah. Orpheus' young face also had a layer of seriousness. Protect Noah, protect Noah. Lilith even got into her stance, her small fist swung forward a few times, creating a heavy sonic boom. The terrifying power that seemed to be able to directly shatter space made the Elysian Emperor, Mugging, and Xiaoshi tremble in fear. Only Athena turned her head away in boredom. This was because she knew that in this world, no one would be able to threaten Noah no matter how big of an accident it was. Otherwise, Noah wouldn't have asked them to protect the people around them. Of course, I will also protect Big Brother. Tina hugged the doll and smiled at Noah. After all, I am the one who started Big Brother. Then I really have to thank you. Noah smiled at the group of little girls and touched them one by one. Of course, he touched their heads, and those who had other thoughts were all facing the wall. Elysian Emperor could not help but laugh when he saw the scene of Noah mingling with the girls. Xiaoshi's eyes had a hint of envy. As for Mugging, before he could say anything, he received a call. Mugging took out his phone and placed it on his ear. The next second, his eyes lit up and he suddenly smiled. What's wrong? Noah saw this scene clearly and asked curiously. Did something good happen? It should be considered good, right? Mugging hung up the phone and said to Noah with a face full of smiles. A certain police officer with a strong sense of justice is back, and he is already in the Tokyo area. Noah raised his eyebrows at once, and then smiled. Chapter 21:18. Tokyo Area, Airport. In the crowded airport lobby, Noah and Hina walked in from the direction of the main entrance. They followed the signs and arrived at the arrival area. It didn't take much effort for Noah to discover a pair of rather conspicuous partners among the people who had arrived at the airport. Of course, it was a police officer pair. The initiator was a young man in his 20s wearing a uniformed suit. The initiator was a young girl who was about 13 or 14 years old. She had 2 ponytails and was wearing a fancy dress, a jacket, and a pair of high boots. The police officer pair was squeezed in the crowd and quarreled for some reason. I say, Rentaro, is the president really back? I say, Yenju, you've asked this question no less than 10 times. I've also answered you no less than 10 times. At least, that's what I said on the phone. But, didn't you say the president would come to pick us up? I haven't seen her yet. I just called Miss Mugging 20 minutes ago. How could she be here so soon? Could it be that you, this muddle-headed fool, got the time wrong? You're the only one who would get the time wrong, not me. Rentaro, you're so annoying. No wonder Mugging doesn't care about you. Even her childhood friend doesn't like you. I think you can only be single for the rest of your life. So noisy. It's not your turn to criticize me, you underage brat. Seeing the clown pair quarreling among themselves and scaring away the pedestrians around them, Noah and Hina looked at each other. Then, they couldn't help but laugh at the same time. Just as Hina opened her mouth and was about to call for help, Noah pressed on Hina's shoulder. He looked at the initiator who was quarreling with the initiator and slowly raised the corners of his mouth. In the next second, Noah's figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. At the same time, the 2 police officers who were quarreling had a serious expression on their faces. Both of them sensed it. A presence was approaching them at an extremely fast speed. Immediately, a figure suddenly appeared behind the young man and suddenly reached out his hand. Rentaro! Yenju exclaimed. However, before Yen Zhu could speak, Rintaro had already made his move. Slap! With a crisp sound, Rintaro raised his left hand and grabbed the hand that was reaching for his right shoulder. However, that hand suddenly trembled and easily broke free from Ryuteru's capture. Clenching it into a fist, it abruptly punched out. Who? The fist whistled through the air and instantly closed in on Ryuteru. A gust of wind blew against Ryuteru's face, causing his pupils to shrink. This was an expert. Ryuteru instantly made this judgment. At the same time, Rintaro's body suddenly tilted to the side, causing the punch that carried a strong gust of wind to land on empty air. Heavenly Child Battle Technique Form 2, Level 16. Just as Noah's fist brushed past Ryuteru's shoulder and missed, Ryuteru pressed one hand against the ground and spun his body. Hidden Zen. Black Wind. The swift and fierce roundhouse kick was as sharp as a blade. With a piercing sound, it kicked toward Noah's missing arm. If this roundhouse kick had really landed, then even a well-trained police officer would be paralyzed for an entire day and would not be able to exert any strength again if one of his arms was not broken. Unfortunately, almost at the same time, Noah suddenly turned his fist into a palm, and with a backhand chop, he collided heavily with Rintaro's ferocious kick. Bang! A low sound of collision rang out. A strong wind blew. The powerful force caused Rintaro's entire body to tumble a few times, and he continued to tumble out. At this time, Ryuteru was finally shocked. Although he did not release his prosthetic arm, without using the ability of the mechanical soldiers, Ryuteru had already used all his combat power. Compared to Ryuteru 3 years ago, who would have been trash if he did not release his prosthetic arm, Ryuteru's skills had improved a lot after 3 years. Compared to himself 3 years ago when he released his prosthetic arm, Ryuteru was almost on par with him. In the end, not only did he not gain any advantage in one move, but he was also suppressed. While Ryuteru was still in shock, and before he could stabilize his body and mind, Noah had already dashed out. In a flash, he appeared in front of Ryuteru. His punches and kicks were like a storm as he unleashed an extremely violent attack. Ryuteru's heart tightened. He could not care less. With a leap, he got into a fighting stance and faced Noah's fierce attack. Bang, 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 bang. Amidst the continuous sounds of punches and kicks colliding, two figures, one in front and one behind, one advancing and one retreating, one attacking and one defending, began a fierce battle in the entire airport's lobby. What? Is this a brawl? Idiot. If a brawl like this is normal, then the police don't deserve to live. Is that a fight between police officers? Hurry. Hurry up and run. The entire airport was suddenly in a mess. The people around all fled in panic, hating that they were not born with a pair of legs. It was no wonder that the general public was so panicked. In the police force, some of them were outlaws, and they were allowed to carry weapons and guns. In the eyes of the general public, they were just a bunch of vicious criminals. Even though most of the world's police officers had joined Fairy Tail and become members of Fairyland, which improved the quality of the police officers, Fairy Tail did not accept just anyone. Those who were obviously disobedient and did not care about the life and death of the initiator would all be rejected and even taught a harsh lesson. Only the cursed child, who was the initiator, would be accepted unconditionally. As a result, without the initiator, many of the initiators who did not pass the test could not become police officers. They could only complain to the International Initiator Supervision Agency. However, the current Fairy Tail had already formed a country of its own, and it was very powerful. If the International Initiator Supervision Agency were to intervene, it would only turn into an international problem, and they would not be able to bear the consequences. Therefore, the International Initiator Supervision Agency today was not as influential as it was 3 years ago. At least, they could not interfere with Fairy Tail. As a result, the initiators who lost the initiator would naturally hold a grudge and would often find fault with Fairy Tail's police officers, which would turn into conflicts. From the perspective of outsiders, there was now a bad police officer looking for fault with a kind police officer, which led to a conflict. Naturally, they would run as far as they could to avoid using their guns and getting hit by stray bullets. If that happened, they would not even have a place to cry. In such a chaotic situation, Yenju finally reacted. Rentaro. The moment the call was heard, Yenju turned into a phantom. Whoosh! Her petite figure carried with it an astonishing speed, like a meteor streaking through the air. Just like that, Yenju rushed out. Her eyes turned scarlet as she violently shot toward Noah and Rentaro, who were fighting with their fists and feet. Immediately after, the shockingly fast Yenju flashed out from behind Rentaro. She flew up and kicked out like a flash of light. Whether it was her movement speed or her attack speed, they were both astonishingly fast. No. Rentaro's expression changed. Perhaps it was because of the suddenness of the situation, but Yenju's kick was already serious. If this kick landed, it would not be as simple as a serious injury. It might even kill him. Just as Ryutaru's expression abruptly changed, another petite figure suddenly appeared. Just like Yenju, she darted out from behind Noah. She raised her scarlet eyes and raised her arms. Boom! Yenju's heavy kick landed heavily on the slender arms that were crossed, causing a muffled explosion. It caused a circle of strong wind to expand, like a whirlwind that swept towards the surroundings. That won't do. In the next instant, the young girl who blocked Yenju's kick smiled faintly. Even if you're Miss Yenju, I won't allow you to hurt my brother. Hearing this, Yenju, who hadn't yet retracted her kick, faltered slightly. Then, she finally got a good look at the person who had just arrived. Hina. Rentaro was also stunned. Then, he saw Noah standing behind Hina, who was looking at him with a hint of a smile on his face. The shock on his face quickly turned into joy. Noah. Chapter 21:19. At this moment, Yenju finally noticed the identity of the person who had attacked Rentaro. Her scarlet eyes first regained their original color, then she became agitated. Guild Master. I've missed you so much. In the next second, Yenju cheered and threw herself at Noah. Noah instinctively opened his arms and caught Yenju in his embrace. The smile on his face did not falter as he rubbed Yenju's little head and laughed out loud. Long time no see, Yenju. You've grown up, and much stronger than before. As he said this, Noah raised his head and looked at Rentaro with a smile. You too, Rentaro. It's been 3 years, and you've become a different person. After all, in order to not be left behind by Miss Mugging, Hina, and the other newbies in the guild, I've been working so hard to get here. Rentaro stepped forward and thumped Noah's chest. You, on the other hand, have disappeared for 3 years, and now you're setting me up the moment you return. Don't you think about how much effort I've put in for your guild? That was the truth. When they first turned to the establishment of Fairyland, which was also the development plan Noah had set before he left, Rentaro had begun his mission with Yenju as the leader of the tour group that Fairy Tail sent to various parts of the world in order to bring the cursed children from all over the world to Fairy Tail. Over the past 3 years, Rentaro and Yenju had been traveling all over the world, repeating the task of secretly sending the cursed children from all over the world to Fairyland. The hardships they encountered during that period were not something that could be easily dealt with. Leaving aside the difficulty of moving the cursed children around the world, just moving all of them to Fairyland was a problem in and of itself. After all, unlike in the past when one could travel between countries by taking a plane, in today's era, the threat of protozoa was almost everywhere. Even if there were still flights, they had to be equipped with police and guards. Otherwise, they could only wait to be eaten by protozoa. Naturally, the mass transfer of the cursed children could not be carried out openly. Therefore, the entire transfer process, from the preparation of transportation to the deployment of guards, had to be handled by Fairy Tail. In light of this, it was easy to imagine how much effort and hardship Rentaro had put in as the leader of the tour group for the past 3 years. Especially a year ago, when the various countries around the world finally noticed the mass exodus of the cursed children and started to control the outflow of the cursed children, the tour group led by Rentaro had to face difficulties and obstructions from various countries. Sometimes, they even had to fight with high-ranking police officers. This kind of life could be said to be like going from the water to the fire. He didn't know how many Azura battlefields he had experienced. Thus, in Fairy Tale, the most hard-working ones were Mugging, Hina, and Xiaoshi, while the most hard-working ones were Rintaro and Yenju. I know you are a great contributor. Noah shrugged. However, thanks to this, you were able to grow rapidly and rise all the way to the top 10 of the IP ranking, right? If it wasn't for the many dangers and experiences he had experienced, how could Rintaro's strength increase so quickly? Even if he didn't use the ability of the mechanical soldiers, he would still be able to compete with his full strength 3 years ago. Yenju's strength increased so quickly because of this, right? Noah patted Yenju's head. Could it be that you have also reached domain? Hee. Yenju didn't answer. She only made a V gesture to Noah, but it was more useful than any answer. However, it was not difficult to guess that Yenju had reached domain. After all, before Noah left, Yenju had already reached her growth limit. Her speed could no longer increase, and her ability could no longer be improved. But just now, Yenju's speed had reached an astonishing level. It was much faster than when Noah left 3 years ago. Since she had already reached her growth limit, it was reasonable to say that she could no longer grow. However, Yenju's speed had greatly increased. Wasn't this the proof that she had broken through her growth limit and reached domain? Hina reached domain 2 years ago, and I reached domain 1 year ago. Yenju said proudly with her hands on her waist. If it wasn't like this, how could Rintaro have reached the top 10 of the IP ranking by himself? Although it's infuriating, without Yenju, I wouldn't have been able to squeeze into the top 10. Rintaro scratched his head and sighed. Every time this happens, I have to admire Miss Mugging. It's really depressing. Rintaro and Yenju's IP ranking was 7th. Mugging and Xiaoshi's IP ranking was 3rd. Undoubtedly, not only did Xiaoshi not reach the domain realm, his combat ability was also not very strong. However, Mugging was still able to reach the top 3 in the IP ranking. It was no wonder that Rintaro was so impressed. Of course, although Xiaoshi's combat ability was not outstanding, he was very smart and could assist Mugging in various situations. For Mugging to reach this ranking, Xiaoshi's contribution could not be ignored. Oh, right. Yenju looked around. Mugging and Xiaoshi didn't come? As pillars of the guild, those two are now public figures from head to toe. In the eyes of others, they could even be considered as the head of state and assistant of Fairyland, which is different from us, Tina said. If we let Miss Mugging and Xiaoshi come to the airport, it will definitely cause a big commotion. Moreover, Miss Mugging is currently a terrorist target, right? Rintaro's expression became serious. Then all the more reason to not come to this kind of public place. It's too dangerous. Speaking of which, why did you suddenly come back? Noah asked. Weren't we still continuing the tour group mission in another country? It's all because of Mugging. Yenju said loudly. Rintaro said that the countries all over the world proposed a meeting with our guild. They definitely have bad intentions. That's why we rushed back. Although Miss Mugging is very strong and would definitely bring Hina along just in case, I still don't think it's very safe. Rintaro nodded. This time, the countries all over the world are obviously targeting our guild. It's hard to guarantee that they won't play some tricks in the dark. If that's the case, we won't be able to wait patiently outside. That's why we came back. Yenju giggled. And we also heard from the guild that the guild leader is back. That's great. In short, you guys being able to rush over is a great help. Noah looked at Rintaro and Yenju and smiled mockingly. With the famous Tank and Tornado, who are ranked 7th in the IP ranking as guards, how reliable. Hearing this, Yenju smiled proudly. Rintaro also smiled, but it was a bitter smile. This sentence, coming from the hermit, who is ranked first in the IP ranking, isn't convincing at all. In Fairy Tail, Rintaro and Yenju were ranked 5th in the IP ranking. Of the top 10 strongest police partners in the IP ranking, 7 of them were in the guild. These 7 pairs of police officers were ranked 1st, 3rd, 4th, 6th, 7th, 9th, and 10th in the IP rankings. Therefore, in the guild, Rintaro and Yenju were ranked 5th in the guild. Of course, the IP ranking set up by the International Association of Pioneers wasn't based on the strength of each police partner. Instead, it was based on the achievements of each partner. Even if this ranking was equivalent to a strong or weak partner. That was why, in Rintaro's opinion, there were only 2 people in the guild that he couldn't defeat no matter what he did. One was Mugeng. The other was Noah. Even after 3 years, Rintaro still didn't know how much Noah's strength had improved. However, Rintaro still didn't have the confidence to defeat Noah. Therefore, whether it was from the IP ranking or from the actual situation, Rintaro felt that he wasn't as reliable as Noah. I just hope that I can help a little bit with the guards. This was Rintaro's thought. In this regard, Noah naturally nodded. Then, let's go first. Rintaro and Yenju both nodded. Chapter 21-20. In other people's eyes, the return of Rintaro and Yenju might have made Mugeng's safety more secure, and made the terrorist attack more suspenseful. However, in Noah's eyes, there was not much of a difference. Although it was a little inappropriate to say this, Noah had arranged for Orpheus and Lilith to be Mugeng's guards. Others might not know how powerful the 2 little girls were, but how could Noah not know? Even in the demon high school, where gods and demon kings were everywhere, Orpheus and Lilith were among the strongest dragon gods. In the Dark Bullet world, Orpheus and Lilith were truly invincible, and it was impossible for them to find an opponent. Even Noah, without using another cosmology, could only match up to one of Orpheus and Lilith at full strength. It was still unknown whether he could defeat them. With Orpheus and Lilith as his guards, there was absolutely no problem for Mugeng. Of course, these 2 dragon gods were too naive, and no one knew if they would suddenly be deceived, leading to some mistakes. Therefore, it was undoubtedly a good thing to have Rintaro and Yenju accompanying him. As for the Holy Son of Heaven's side, although Aster and Athena's strength was far inferior to Orpheus and Lilith, they were more secure in terms of safety. No matter what, Athena was once the goddess of wisdom. In terms of strategy, Athena was truly the strongest in the world, right? Therefore, compared to Mugeng's side, the Holy Son of Heaven's guards were weaker, but they had no flaws. Even if they were not as good as Orpheus and Lilith, Aster and Athena were still not ordinary. As long as Noah did not interrupt the supply of divine power, Aster and Athena would be able to display power comparable to that of a god. That level of power was also invincible in this world. Since they were all invincible, it did not matter if there was a difference in combat power, since they were all allies. Under such circumstances, in the next 2 days, Mugeng and the Holy Son of Heaven were still preparing for the international conference. Noah, on the other hand, pushed all the preparations to Mugeng, and even pushed Tina, who was the initiator, to be the Holy Son of Heaven's guard. He himself wandered around the streets every day, and his idleness made people speechless. At least, some people hated this to the core. In a dim war room, bodyguard Joren, who was covered in a black robe and only had his hood removed to reveal a mechanical head, looked at Noah, who was wandering around on the surveillance screen, playing on one street after another. He clenched his fists tightly. Bang! At a certain moment, the bodyguard finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He smashed the instrument next to him with a punch and roared out loud. Why? Why won't you let me go out and kill that bastard? Isn't this a great opportunity? From the monitor, it was very clear that Noah did not bring any guards with him at all. For the past 2 days, he had been loafing around alone, wandering around. Just like what the bodyguard said, if they wanted to assassinate Noah, this was definitely a great opportunity. However, this great opportunity had started 2 days ago, and it had not been interrupted for the past 2 days. What did this mean? Did it mean that Noah's sense of danger was so low that he did not even realize the situation he was in? Of course not. This guy, he's looking down on us. The bodyguard was furious. He's obviously telling us that even if he doesn't bring any guards with him, we can't do anything to him. Isn't that right? The bodyguard's furious roar echoed throughout the war room. In this war room, other than the bodyguard, there were 3 other people. One was Li Ching-yin. This mechanical soldier who killed without blinking was now leaning against the wall at the side, looking at the surveillance screen, thinking about something. The other was Leech Benet Jr. This cursed child who also killed without blinking was hugging his sword and hiding in the corner. His pair of eyes maintained the scarlet color of his ability fully activated, and he was mumbling. Tina. 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 It was quite clear that Benet the Leech was still brooding over his loss to Tina the last time. After all, the opponent was a sniper with godly skills who was not good at close combat, and he, who had the mantis factor, could be said to be invincible in close combat. In the end, he lost to a sniper in close combat, and it was a clean loss. One could imagine how Benet the Leech was feeling. As for the third person, he was like the bodyguard, covered in a black robe, and even his face was hidden under the hood. The black-robed person's body, from the appearance, could only be vaguely seen from the face that it was a male. However, this black-robed person was sitting in front of the surveillance screen, looking at Noah who was strolling back and forth on the street, holding a barbecue skewer in one hand and a cold drink in the other, very happily strolling around the street. One of his hands was constantly knocking on the table. Looking carefully, on the wrist of the hand that the black-robed person was knocking on the table, there was a tattoo. A pentagram tattoo decorated with feathers. Without a doubt, that was the proof of a member of the Five Xiang Association. However, different from the terrorist leader who launched the attack a few nights ago, the tattoo on the wrist of this black-robed person was not decorated with 2 feathers, but 5 feathers. That was the proof of a top operative of the Five Xiang Association. This black-robed person was one of the top operatives of the Five Xiang Association. Looking at this top operative of the Five Xiang Association, the bodyguard couldn't help but shout. "Sir! Don't tell me you're just going to watch that bastard arrogantly walk around in front of our eyes?" Hearing this, the black-robed person who was called, "Sir," by the bodyguard raised his head. The corner of his mouth carried a trace of sarcasm. "He is indeed very arrogant," Sir said indifferently. "He didn't bring any guards, and he didn't have a trace of defense. As our target, he is walking around in the street at this critical moment. This is either like what you said, he doesn't see us as a threat, or he is purposely leading us out. There is no third possibility. Maybe it's both?" Li Qingyin laughed in a low voice. "Sir, aren't you worried about falling into that man's trap, so you can't make up your mind to assassinate him?" "Trap?" the bodyguard said disdainfully. "Isn't it just a monster leader? What kind of trap can he play?" Hearing the bodyguard's words, Li Qingyin didn't say anything, but he didn't even want to look at the bodyguard. Li Qingyin really felt that the bodyguard was laughable. Undoubtedly, he had fallen into someone else's hands, and even lost his life. In the end, he still maintained this high and mighty attitude. It was really stupid. Li Qingyin didn't even understand why Professor Grunewald would save such a useless guy, and even give him the ability to create mechanical soldiers. If it wasn't for the fact that this guy still had some use, Li Qingyin would have definitely killed him without any mercy. On the other hand, Sir didn't seem to care about the bodyguard's stupidity at all. His tone was still calm. "I didn't assassinate him not only because I was worried about falling into his trap, but also because I was waiting for everything to be ready." "Oh?" Li Qingyin was interested. "You're finally going to be serious?" "That's right." Sir smiled coldly. "When everything is ready, we'll tell them that the attack a few days ago was just a game. We'll tell them what the true strength of the Five Xiang Association is." We'll let this so-called fairy tale have a good look. As he said this, he turned his head and looked at Li Qingyin and Zhuoren Baowei. You two follow the plan, don't make any mistakes. If anyone dares to act without permission, I don't need to tell you what will happen, right? This sentence didn't cause any reaction from Li Qingyin. He only laughed a few times in disdain. The bodyguard's body trembled, and there was some unwillingness in his eyes. If it wasn't for Sir's warning, the bodyguard wouldn't have been able to resist looking for Noah, right? Now, the bodyguard could only give up on this idea. As for Li Qingyin, to him, as long as he could fulfill his wish, it didn't matter. What wish? To destroy the world. I can smell the scent of war, how delightful. Chapter 21-21. He didn't come out. On the street leading to the holy residence, Noah was still nibbling on barbecued meat skewers and drinking cold drinks like a loafer. However, he was muttering to himself in a voice that no one else could hear. Well, I was just trying to see if I could lure out Zhuoren, that useless idiot. It seems that there should be someone by that idiot's side who can restrain him. It had to be said that after returning to this world, Noah's thinking ability that had grown from all kinds of conspiracies and machinations that he had trained here was fully operational. Just like what Li Qingyin had said, Noah was wandering the streets leisurely for two reasons. Firstly, he wanted to see if he could lure out the rats that were scurrying in the dark. Secondly, he didn't think that he would encounter any danger even if he was alone. In any case, Wood and Xia Shi were preparing for the international conference. In terms of safety, Aster, Athena, Orpheus, and Lilith were there to ensure their safety. Noah could totally be a hands-off boss and do other things. Of course, Noah didn't think that such an obvious temptation, a mysterious organization with the goal of dominating the world, would be fooled. Otherwise, the other party was just a small character that wasn't worth mentioning. It wasn't worth Noah's effort. The reason why he carried out such a temptation with such an idea was just to hang Zhuoren, that useless idiot. Even if the Wuxiang Association did have some ability, Noah didn't think that it would change anything for the idiot Zhuoren. If the other party was really spying on him in the dark, then Noah's arrogant stroll on the street, Zhuoren would definitely run out with blood rushing to his head. And since that idiot didn't run out, it proved that there was indeed a big character by his side who was restraining him. Could it be the top operatives of the Wuxiang Association? Noah took a bite of the skewer, but his face had a confident smile that made the hearts of several female high school students palpitate. It would be good if it was. Because, in this way, Noah could be sure that the leader of the mysterious organization that planned to go against the fairy tale was in the Tokyo area. Since you're here, don't leave. Muttering to himself, Noah leisurely finished the kebab in his hand and drank the cold drink. He clapped his hands and walked in the direction of the holy residence. Tomorrow, the international conference would resume. Since the bodyguard didn't jump out, he probably wouldn't be fooled again. There was no point in continuing to wander around here. Thus, Noah did not linger on the street any longer and went straight back to the holy residence. The attack a few days ago had raised the security of the holy residence to a whole new level. There were guards patrolling and standing guard everywhere. The guards obviously knew Noah. When Noah came over, they didn't check or interrogate him. However, the other party didn't notice Noah's arrival. In front of the desk, Elysian Emperor was sitting with his back facing the door. He had a pen in his hand and was writing something very seriously. Seeing this, Noah deliberately slowed down his footsteps and walked behind Elysian Emperor. Only then did he realize that Elysian Emperor was not doing anything else but arranging the procedures for tomorrow's international conference. Seeing Elysian Emperor repeatedly writing down the procedures of the conference, Noah couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. The Elysian son was startled. He turned his head and saw Noah. His eyes lit up as he exclaimed in surprise and joy. "Why are you here?" Now, the sky was almost dark. Noah didn't live in the celestial abode. Although they were allies, the holy abode, as the residence of the ruler of the Tokyo area, had become a symbolic residence, just like the presidential palace. If Fairy Tale directly moved in and spread any rumors, it would not be good for the holy abode. Therefore, Noah, Mugeng, Hina, Xiaoshi, Yanzhu, and Rentaro all lived in the International Hotel, not in the celestial abode. In the past 2 days, in order to prepare for the international conference, Elysian Emperor was almost busy, and Noah was strolling on the street to see if he could provoke the bodyguard. Naturally, they didn't meet. Looking at Elysian Emperor's happy and surprised expression, Noah somewhat playfully smiled. What? Could it be that I can't come? Then I'll go. With that said, Noah really turned around and prepared to walk in the direction of the door. Elysian Emperor was anxious. Immediately, Elysian Emperor quickly stood up and grabbed Noah's clothes. The corner of Noah's mouth lifted slightly, turned his head, and looked at Elysian Emperor. Under Noah's gaze, Elysian Emperor lowered his head shyly and said softly, "I'm very happy that you can come." This sentence, if it wasn't for Noah's enhanced hearing, he might not have heard it. So, Noah smiled. Okay, I'm just teasing you." Noah laughed and pinched Elysian Emperor's little nose, then sat down on Elysian Emperor's seat, took the girl's hand, and directly pulled. Ah! Elysian Emperor let out a little exclamation, and then her body was pulled into Noah's arms and directly sat on his lap. Only lovers were allowed to be close to each other, making Elysian Emperor, who had never been so close to any opposite sex, blushed. Of course, Elysian Emperor didn't know that when she, who was originally as holy as a goddess, acted like a young girl, it was even more attractive. Chapter 21-22. Looking at the holy ruler of the Tokyo region showing a shy expression, Noah's heart was hot. He wanted to hold back, but he reacted. Why should I hold back? I don't hold back for others. Why should I hold back for a lover who has already confirmed their relationship? With this in mind, Noah simply kissed the delicate face of the girl in his arms. Ah! Xingzi suddenly exclaimed again, and the shyness in her eyes turned into shame and anger. She glared at Noah with a red face and protested aloud. I'm working. Yes, I know that our Lord Xingzi loves work the most. Noah smiled indifferently, picked up the meeting process that had been simulated several times on the table, and sighed. However, our Lord Xingzi doesn't seem to know that her work is completely redundant. No matter how much memorization is required, there is no need to simulate the meeting process so many times, right? Although the meeting was proposed by the countries of the world, since the location was chosen in the Tokyo region, the process of the meeting naturally had to be drawn up by the ruler of the Tokyo region. However, the process of the meeting simulated by Xingzi was already so detailed that it couldn't be more detailed, but this girl had been simulating it over and over again. It was really a bit clumsy. No matter what, even if the location is chosen in the Tokyo region, the meeting is still proposed by the countries of the world. No matter how detailed your simulation is, if you don't get to the point, then it's just useless work. Noah raised the draft in his hand and said to Xingzi. This time, the countries of the world are obviously here for the fairy tale, but you didn't mention a single word about this during the entire meeting. Do you think the countries of the world will continue to follow your ideas? Hearing this, the blush on Xingzi's pretty face slowly faded, and she sighed consciously. I also know that this is just useless work, but if possible, I really don't want to see the only remaining human countries in the world still fighting for the so-called hegemony at this juncture. Compared with before the emergence of gastronomes, today's human beings could almost be said to be struggling at death's door. Even the tiny island nation of Japan had lost most of its land due to the threat of the protozoa. The remaining humans were divided into 5 regions and survived by relying on the giant stone tablet. It was not hard to imagine that the other large countries would suffer even greater disasters. Under such circumstances, humans should work hand in hand to deal with the protozoa that threatened the survival of the entire human race. However, humans had completely failed to grasp the instinct that even protogut animals would not kill each other. Even in this situation, they were still fighting against each other. This made the Holy Son of Heaven feel sad. You're just too kind. Noah naturally knew what kind of person his little girlfriend was. His tone couldn't help but soften. However, it's not a good thing to be too soft-hearted. Sometimes, you have to be decisive when it's time to be decisive. You're the ruler of the Tokyo region. You should understand this, right? I know what you want to say. The Elysian prince fell silent for a moment before looking at Noah. I'm just worried that the worst will happen tomorrow. Under the gaze of the Elysian son of heaven, Noah also fell silent. After a while, Noah spoke faintly. Are you referring to the war? The Elysian son of heaven nodded solemnly. The reason why all the countries in the world targeted Fairy Tail was because Fairy Tail had taken in the cursed children of all the countries in the world and obtained an extremely powerful strength. It even had the ability to compete for the hegemony of the world and threaten all the countries. In this case, at tomorrow's international conference, it was already obvious which aspect the countries around the world would target. In order to weaken the power of Fairy Tail and to take back the weapons that used to belong to their countries, the countries around the world will definitely raise the issue of the cursed children's whereabouts. The Elysian son of heaven said worriedly. As the main culprit behind the illegal abduction of citizens from various countries, every country in the world would definitely condemn your guild with righteous words tomorrow and demand the return of their cursed children. It would not be impossible for them to demand compensation from Fairyland. This was the so-called politics. Even if Fairy Tail took in children from all over the world for the sake of the cursed children's future, taking away the people of a country without permission was indeed a violation of the law. No matter how much the countries around the world hated the cursed children, they could still use this as an excuse and stand on the side of justice. Just like what the Elysian son of heaven said, they would condemn Fairy Tail and demand compensation. And if Fairy Tail doesn't accept, the countries around the world will definitely use the excuse of seeking justice as an excuse to declare war on Fairyland. The Elysian son of heaven looked straight at Noah. When that time comes, what will you do? What would Noah do? Under the Elysian son of heaven's gaze that seemed to want to see through his heart, Noah spoke indifferently. Don't you already know the answer? Hearing this, the Elysian son of heaven could not help but show a worried expression. That's right. The Elysian son of heaven already knew the answer. Because, just 3 years ago, Noah made a choice. On one side, it was the hopeless humans. On the other side, it was the innocent children. Which side would he stand on? Based on the Elysian son of heaven's understanding of his sweetheart, no matter how he thought about it, there was only one answer. And this answer was not only the answer that Noah would give, but also the answer that everyone in Fairyland would give. We, Fairy Tail, will only fight for our family and companions, Noah said without hesitation. If someone wants to harm our family and companions, then the entire Fairyland will not be afraid of any challenge or battle. That's right. This answer was already deeply ingrained in the hearts of the people of Fairyland and even other regions and countries. And there would not be any wavering. But the countries around the world will definitely not let this go. The Elysian son of heaven smiled bitterly. In the end, tomorrow's international conference will definitely develop into the prelude to war. It was because of this that the Elysian son of heaven had been doing useless things, simulating the conference process over and over again in an attempt to prevent the conference from going down the wrong path. For the Elysian son of heaven who yearned for peace, war was the only thing that must be avoided. Once a war breaks out, innocent people will definitely be implicated. Some countries will even be destroyed by primitive animals because their precious metals will be taken away by the victorious country after losing the war. This time, the severity of the situation is even worse. Once a war breaks out, it will be a real world war. The Elysian son of heaven bit his lip as he stared at Noah. Is there really no way to avoid war? Under the Elysian son of heaven's helpless and hopeful gaze, Noah shut his mouth. Seeing this, the Elysian son of heaven's eyes brightened as he quickly spoke. You have a way to avoid war, right? Who was this man before him? When he was still the president of a small civilian organization, he was able to fight a battle of wits and courage with the celestial minister of Chrysanthemum, not falling into a disadvantageous position, and even ousted him from his position. Even the dictatorial Chiwu Xuanzong couldn't do anything to this man, and because of the development plan he left behind 3 years ago, all the countries in the world ended up being controlled by others. If there was anyone who could find a way to avoid war, the Elysian Son of Heaven believed that it was definitely the man in front of him. The key was whether Noah was willing or not. After all, Noah wouldn't show the slightest bit of mercy to those who intended to hurt the people around him. Thinking of this, the Holy Son of Heaven shyly wrapped his arms around Noah's neck and asked in a coquettish manner, "I know that you hate those selfish people, but the commoners are innocent. For the sake of those innocent commoners, please, help me." Under the Elysian Son of Heaven's pleading tone, Noah finally smiled bitterly. Immediately, Noah stared at the Elysian Son of Heaven. "It's my bad luck to have a loyal head of state like you." The Elysian Son of Heaven smiled happily. Chapter 21-23. The next day, early in the morning. Early in the morning, on the roads leading to the center of Tokyo District 1, luxury cars came from all directions like a procession, gradually rushing to a huge clubhouse. It was a clubhouse in the middle of a road, located in a vast square, shaped like a giant egg. In front of the clubhouse was a courtyard. In the center of the courtyard was a gorgeous fountain. Logically speaking, most of the Earth's land is now occupied by protozoa, and the population is facing a shortage of living places. It is not a wise decision to make such a vast piece of land so luxurious, and it seems that no one usually lives in it. However, no matter where, the facade is a very important thing. If it is really necessary to be extravagant and wasteful, then it can't be saved. This clubhouse in front of him belongs to the ranks of necessary extravagance and wastefulness. Because this clubhouse is the embassy of the Tokyo region. As a permanent diplomatic representative office of a country, the embassy represents the interests of the entire country and is fully responsible for the communication and exchange between the country and foreign countries. Of course, as the most important building of a country, the embassy can't be too shabby no matter what. The embassy in District 1, which is located in the center of Tokyo, is mainly used as a venue for communication between the Tokyo area and the remaining 4 areas of Japan that were left after the collapse of the past. But today, this clubhouse is open to the whole world, welcoming representatives from all over the world. Luxurious limousines were parked around the square one after another. Under the protection of a group of guards, the representatives of the various countries moved towards the embassy one by one with a serious expression on their faces. At the entrance of the embassy, the Tokyo region's dignitaries in charge of reception stepped forward one by one, bowed to the representatives from all over the world, exchanged greetings, and then led the representatives from all over the world into the embassy. For a while, the entire embassy seemed to be unusually lively. And around the embassy, the security was also extremely tight. Not only the large team of police officers, but they also drove police cars and patrolled everywhere. Even the self-defense forces, which are usually stationed at the border of the country, sent a lot of personnel, holding heavy machine guns and large weapons, standing guard in various places. A rigorous and solemn atmosphere pervaded the entire embassy. Under such circumstances, the protagonists finally arrived late. Several limousines slowly drove into the plaza of the embassy and stopped directly in front of the red carpet that extended from the main entrance. They then opened the doors and alighted. The first to descend was the Holy Son of Heaven. Under the protection of the guards of the holy residence, the Holy Son of Heaven, dressed in a white suit, got off the car. However, he did not walk to the red carpet. Instead, he stood in place and waited. After Xingtianzi's car left, another car stopped in front of Xingtianzi. There were 3 people who got off the bus. One was Heaven's child Mugeng. One was Rintaro Rikami. The last one was naturally Noah. After getting off the car, Noah raised his head and looked at the embassy in front of him. Mugino and Rintaro came to Noah's left and right respectively. Like followers, they announced who the owner of the fairy tale was. They also looked at the huge hall in front of them with serious expressions. Because, for the fairy tale, the embassy in front of them was likely to become a battlefield made purely of words today. If they were not careful, it was very likely that from today onwards, Fairyland would become the public enemy of the world. The people inside will all become our enemies later, right? Mugino said in a low voice. To be valued and viewed as enemies by all the countries in the world, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. At the very least, we hope to be able to come out smiling, while others will definitely want to see us come out crying. Ryutaru tugged at his tie. His tone inevitably became a little rough. The only thing I can be sure of is that after the meeting, I will definitely hate a lot of people. Someone you hate? Noah curled his lips, but smiled faintly. I think, after the meeting, there will definitely be a lot of people who will hate us. Hearing this, Mugino and Rintaro both laughed bitterly. However, Noah's relaxed attitude made the two of them feel more at ease. Although there were many things that they should be worried about, since this person who had once established the entire fairy tale as the hope of a new era and protected a group of children from the dark side of human beings was here, then the problem in front of them should be easily solved, right? Mugino and Rintaro believed so. At this time, Elysium slowly walked over and stopped in front of the three people. As soon as he came up, Elysium noticed something and asked in surprise. Where are Miss Hina, Miss Natsuki, and Miss Yenju? Yes. Only Noah, Mugino, and Rintaro came down from the car. The three people who started them were nowhere to be seen. Not only that, but Orpheus and Lilith were also not here. Even Aster and Athena, who were originally sent to protect Elysium, suddenly disappeared when Elysium woke up in the morning. In response, Mugino and Rintaro shook their heads at the same time. We don't know either. They were gone when we woke up in the morning. Noah only told us not to worry, but did not tell us the details. Elysium turned his gaze to Noah when he heard Mugino and Rintaro's words. His eyes were full of questions. Seeing this, Noah smiled and said, Those children have another mission and have returned to Fairyland. Returned to Fairyland? Both Mugino and Rintaro were surprised. Then doesn't that mean? Elysium was even more surprised. You don't even have a guard by your side now? This was not a joke. One must know that now, every country in the world saw fairy tale as a thorn in their side. In order to eliminate the threat of fairy tale, they were always thinking of getting rid of the leader of fairy tale. Under such circumstances, it would be foolish of him not to bring a single guard with him. Seeing the worry in Elysium's eyes, Noah pretended to be relaxed as if he wanted to reassure the overly kind leader of the country. What do you mean no guards? Don't we still have Mugino and Rintaro? Hearing this, Mugino and Rintaro's bitter smile deepened. Although I'm confident in my own strength, I can't guarantee that I'm better than Hina and Yenju. Mugino sighed. Moreover, undoubtedly, I'm the acting leader, and now you want me to be a guard? Well, I did come here with the intention of becoming a guard, Ryutaru said in a puzzled tone. But, without the initiator by your side, isn't it a little too dangerous? Maybe? Noah said to Rintaro in a mocking tone. So, you'll have to work harder, Mr. Partner of Justice. Hearing this, Elysium and Mugino both paused for a moment, then laughed. The confusion on Rintaro's face instantly turned into annoyance. You guys always bring up what happened 3 years ago, don't you get tired of it? 3 years ago, in order to get Noah to save the entire Tokyo area, Rintaro stood up for justice and fought with Noah. After that, Rintaro was always ridiculed by the guild members as the partner of justice. Even the International Initiator Monitoring Committee considered whether they should give Rintaro the nickname, Partner of Justice, which made Rintaro break down several times. Who told you to be in the limelight at that time? Noah couldn't help but laugh. Just accept your fate. Ryutaru could only glare at Noah with resentment in his eyes. Everyone couldn't help but laugh when they saw this. Alright, everyone. Elysium put away the smile on his face and became serious. It's time to go in. Noah nodded nonchalantly, and then led Mugino and Rintaro toward the embassy under Elysium's guidance. The heavily guarded embassy was like the calm before the storm, exuding a solemn atmosphere. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.